FFPC Insider Access is live ahead of Week 15. Hi, hello, and welcome to the Better Sports Network, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eric Balkman, at Eric Balkman on the X. Of course, you know me from the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and, of course, the Fantasy Football Players Championship. Want to welcome in my guest tonight. You know him from his work at Establish the Run on X, at Not J Daigle on X. He is John Daigle. John, welcome back to the show. So glad to have you aboard tonight, man.
I appreciate it. It's the most important time of the year, the first round of playoffs for a lot of people. It's time for the money round. So excited to be here with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun tonight. And I always think that doing shows at this specific portion of the season is, I don't want to say difficult, but they're different because people who are still watching, people who are still listening, people who are still playing have really good teams, right? So you don't want to be talking about players, you know, that are you're like your RB6. Hey, is he an interesting flex this week? You can't do that. You have to talk about players on really good teams, at really good fantasy football teams that are going to have to be benched in certain formats because the team is so good and you just can't play everybody. That's what I think is interesting about doing shows like this. And you're a season-long bro, as we know. So I think that this is going to be a very interesting show as we try to navigate people and in submitting the right lineup. And I don't know about you, John. I think drafting, waiver wire, I feel like I have a decent handle on it, but lineup sitting week to week, God, I haven't gotten better at that over the course of 20 some years or whatever I've been playing. Like I've gotten better at drafting, blind budget management. Lineup setting is still problematic for me.
I would say decision making is still my strength. Now, is that always the right decision? No. But as we get older and have to do it more often, I don't worry about the results anymore, to be honest. And there are, of course, the times that my emotions will get furious or react differently. But 99% of the time, I set it due to the process and just forget it from that point forward. Okay. Because we both have too many teams to actually worry about like getting one right or wrong.
Well, and that's the other thing, too, is like, not all my teams make the playoffs. So now I have fewer teams I'm actually paying attention to. And now I'm in the analysis paralysis phase where I'm like, maybe I'm looking at it too long. Maybe what got me there, I'm not doing that anymore. And I spend more time on lineup setting. And sometimes that can be problematic as well. Anyway, we'll get into all that coming up on the show tonight. We are going to go around the NFL and talk about everything going on with Jordan Addison's Achilles, Phillip Rivers, for God's sake, 5 years later. We have to talk about this. We'll talk about the handcuff running backs in Baltimore as well. We'll get into our Thursday night preview coming up in about 45 minutes or so. We'll talk about the Falcons, talk about the Bucs tonight, and then John and I will go over some starter sits, including but not limited to players like Rico, Dowdle, Christian Watson, Trevor Lawrence, and more. Now, I'm trying to see if I have this on the rundown right now, and I don't. So I think I'm going to lead off with it. We're going to talk about Michael Wilson in a second. Before we do, I want to remind everybody, FFPC Weekly Challenge is live. Right now, myffpc.com, the weekly challenge, no draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. You can win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100-team contest, one player per NFL team at myffpc.com. And you say, Balky, that sounds really familiar. Where have I heard this before? Well, you've heard it from the world-famous FFPC Playoff Challenge. Same format, and that is live now as well. Pick 12 players in that. You can't pick them yet because we don't know all the teams in the playoffs, but you can register right now. $200 entry fee will get you eligible for a $500,000 grand prize. $35 entry fee will get you eligible for a $100K grand prize. One player per NFL team, myffpc.com. Sean Engel is our producer tonight. John, let's take Joe King's question on YouTube right now and talk about the conundrum that is Michael Wilson. And maybe he's not a conundrum at all at this point in the season. This guy has been crushing it the last several weeks. Without Marvin Harrison, Jacoby Brissett, obviously a big factor in that. But now we are talking about the Houston Texans this week. I am a weak man. I've said this numerous times on this show. I am not strong enough to bench Michael Wilson against the Arizona Cardinals. Should I even be thinking that? What are you thinking the Cardinals offense is going to do against this vaunted Texans defense that has yet to allow a 20-point performance from a quarterback yet this season?
I think they're going to struggle, but I'm not going to bench Michael Wilson or Trey McBride. The floors are too high for their volumes. So while I am concerned, I don't think many teams, especially in the playoffs, are in a situation where they have this choice to make it all. You just close your eyes and hope for the best here. The Texans are not only allowing the fewest passing points per game to opposing quarterbacks. We just saw them on primetime absolutely dominate the Chiefs, for example. They're also allowing the second fewest yards per game to opposing wide receiver ones, less than 45 yards per game. The only other team doing that is, of course, the new Legion of Boom, Seattle, weekly. So, yeah, I'm very worried about Michael Wilson, especially because Jacoby Brissett, it sounds crazy to say, I know everyone just box score watching or who hears us in the fantasy space talk about them are going to be shocked by this statement. He's been bad. He has, in all of these starts, he hasn't reached 3 passing touchdowns in any of them. He is exclusively living on unsustainable volume with over 40-plus pass attempts weekly. At some point, it's the Aaron Paul meme. At some point, he can't keep getting away with it. He's going to fall out, and I do think it's going to happen against this amazing Texans defense.
It's funny because, I was listening. I can't remember who I was listening to the other day, but they said, well, we don't chase touchdowns, we chase volume. Well, Brissett, it kind of seems the opposite a little bit because you mentioned it's unsustainable volume. He has not been a touchdown merchant, fewer than 3 touchdowns every single. Now he's been like 2 pretty much every single game. I think he had 1 game where he had 1. But can you talk a little bit more about that, about why we normally chase volume, but we don't want to chase it in this sense with Brissett? Why do you think it is unsustainable?
Just the fact that when you look at league average pass attempts per game, and then this is the kind of analysis we do in the offseason, just suggesting this many plays per game, this pass rate in general. You look back over the last 2 decades, like my database goes back to 2011, and I'll usually go back and run it and be like, oh, well, the 12 teams that average 44 pass attempts per game, actually, they averaged the following year 8 fewer and none matched that. We just look at volume that typically tends to regress. And so we do not think that the Cardinals can keep going on with this kind of volume. They want to be a pass-heavy team, but it's kind of like, let's say the Bengals and Ravens go into this game. Like, I do have faith in the Bengals offense and the Ravens offense. You're not benching most of those players, but you can also look back and say that first game on Thanksgiving, the Bengals ran 80 plays. That's not going to happen. Again, 80 plays is such a high number to be able to reach weekly. Thus, when the volume comes down, we can then probably eliminate the cute guys like Mitch Tinsley, like Mike Gesicki. We may even talk about him at some point. I know people want to start him, but again, we may talk about him later. But the volume just won't be there, so we can really just depend on Jamar Chase, and that's like at least having confidence in the passing game. That's about it.
So we have to talk about, well, I'll tell you this. Let's do this. We got a question on Twitch here from Anderson P106.
Sure.
Mike Evans, Michael Pittman, Jordan Addison. This is a full PPR question here. And I'm assuming Anderson can only play one of these players. So obviously Evans going tonight. This is a decision he'll have to make tonight. Evans, going up against the Falcons on Thursday Night Football. You have Michael Pittman, who may have, God knows what quarterback is going to be throwing to him. He is at Seattle. And then Jordan Addison dealing with a sore Achilles this week. Jordan Addison is, I just had it in front of me and now I don't, at Dallas.
Yeah, Sunday Night Football.
Right. So I can't remember who reported it earlier, a couple hours ago, that Evans was probably not going to be playing every single down, or not that he would play every single down, but limited downs tonight. He might be on a snap count. Not a pitch count, because this is football, not baseball. So we are talking about Mike Evans being on a snap count. It comes down to Addison for me versus Addison and Michael Pittman. I lean towards Pittman here, John, but I can be persuaded here.
I would go Addison for the matchup. Outside wide receivers in particular is where the Cowboys are still getting beat just because they don't have any cornerback talent. Quinnen Williams made them a defense that teams don't want to run against. Like, even for Jahmyr Gibbs' good day, he averaged less than 4 yards per carry. He just fell forward for 3 touchdowns. Like, the run defense for Dallas is now one that is super tough for opposing running backs, so much so it's actually one of the toughest matchups in the league. But the secondary is still extremely bad. So, not saying JJ McCarthy will get there. Even his best game was a few touchdowns to Josh Oliver. It didn't help anyone. Ask anyone who started Justin Jefferson. And I'm not even saying he's going to be good in this game, but I do think the ceiling is higher when we're nitpicking about Jordan Addison. When we're talking about the unknown of Phillip Rivers and just the lack of confidence I have in Phillip Rivers against the Seattle defense that is single-handedly winning every one of their fantasy leagues every single week.
We've
never had this, Eric, probably since the pandemic year when like 4th-string quarterbacks were getting tagged in. Right. There's a non-zero chance Phillip Rivers dies on Sunday. Like we've never had that situation in fantasy football in like 5 years. So I'm just very tepid about any Colts this week.
I have so much more to ask you about regarding Phillip Rivers and the Colts offense. I promise everybody we will get to it. We are having a lot of start sit questions coming in right now, and I want to go to it right now. Let's go. I think we got L. Kraus here, 7892, Sean, if we want to throw that up. Having a real hard time on whether to start Emeka, Egbuka, and PPR this week. Would you start him over Devin, Neal, Rico, Dowdle, and Courtland Sutton? I think I would, despite the play of Baker Mayfield, which I want to ask you about in a little bit here. This whole first 10 minutes of the show has just been one big tease so far. But I want to kind of figure this out here for L. Kraus here. I think it's Egbuka over both those running backs and Courtland Sutton. I'm a little bit nervous about not a lot of points being scored in that Packers-Broncos game. And I also think that both teams are going to try to run the ball quite a bit, which I don't know how much volume Sutton gets this week. Neal at least is in the position of probably not competing against a whole lot of other running backs in his backfield for touches. I just don't know how good that Saints offense is going to be. And we saw the resurgence of Chuba Hubbard here in Carolina. So I think I still leave Egbuka in here.
I completely agree. We're talking about a guy who still has at least 8 targets in 7 consecutive games. Like we are getting the volume. It's not necessarily that his play exclusively has fallen off. It's that Baker Mayfield has been closer to a droppable quarterback. He's been awful the last couple of months. I think personally he's going to be a guy that after the season, we hear about him having 12 surgeries just because he's a dog. I truly believe he's playing through so many injuries, banged up. They've been missing their offensive line part of the time. We know last year they didn't even win a game when both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were out because they just didn't have the talent. Egbuka, while extremely talented, is still a rookie. And so it's just hard to get by on this kind of lifestyle that the Bucs are living. So I just think we're going to find out a lot of things about the Bucs after the offseason, and they've been terrible. Having said that, again, it's the type of situation we talked about where we trust the volume like a Michael Wilson. I'm just going to close my eyes here and trust it and think that it's still at least a softer matchup. We've seen very successful performances to opposing wide receivers, the ones the past couple of weeks. Keaton Mitchell a few weeks ago, for example, over 100 yards and a touchdown. JSN does it every week, but even JSN and Cooper Kupp last week combined for 120 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Falcons defense is susceptible, so I'm going to just cross my fingers on the volume and make it easy.
Let's throw this pepper into the gumbo from L. Kraus as well. Let's assume tight end premium because I think this makes the question more fun.
Yep.
L. Kraus also asking, okay, also Harold Fannin. When you talk about volume with Egbuka and Fannin, Harold Fannin has seen at least 5 targets every single week dating back to week 7 of this season. Now, the yardage has not been there except for last week when, it was Tennessee, so take that with maybe a grain of salt. But he had 8 catches for 114 yards. He gets in the end zone there. He gets Chicago this week. If we're assuming tight end premium, and we're also assuming that L. Kraus has a juggernaut here, would you play Harold Fannin and then bench Emeka Egbuka tonight?
In tight end premium, yes. In a regular PPR format, no. But in tight end premium, I am going to trust Harold Fannin's workload, who, the last few from Shadur Sanders has out-targeted the rest of the team 21-12. And that was with David Njoku still on the field. David Njoku DMP through on Wednesday and Thursday. The past couple of games, Fannin, 93%, 85% of routes run. He's just a guy that I got asked, for example, in the Establish to Run Discord, Harold Fannin or Tyler Warren. And to me, it's an easy Harold Fannin. He's a guy who's a top 4 tight end. I would start him over Kyle Pitts tonight if you have him the rest of the way.
So we also have My Nine Rides Shotgun here on YouTube. Michael Pittman or Mike Evans. We touched on both of these because I'm worried about the volume. I'm going to say Pittman over Evans. I think you might disagree, though.
No, gosh, we just don't know Evans' snap count. Now he's active, and the style of play he has, he's 1,000% active just to be involved inside the 5. And so you could luck box your way into a touchdown. So I'm just asking myself, in a full PPR league, can Pittman beat a touchdown, and I'm just going to cross my fingers that there is zero film out on a 44-year-old Phillip Rivers. And so maybe, we've seen weirder things. Maybe Pittman can still get me like 5 for 60, which I think would beat Evans.
It might. It's probably touchdown dependent at that point when it comes down to it. Tom Smith, our good buddy Tom Smith here chiming in. Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold? Currently, he has Baker Mayfield in the starting lineup against Atlanta tonight. Sam Darnold, I think we touched on the Seahawks a little bit. They're taking on said Colts in Seattle. When it comes down to those two players, who are you playing tonight?
It's Sam Darnold. I don't even think he has a ceiling just because I have zero faith the Colts are able to push back. But we know also Sam Darnold's floor every single week when he doesn't get volume is 250 and a couple touchdowns. And I just think that's going to be better than what we've seen the last 2 months from Baker Mayfield. So I'm taking the Darnold floor in this situation.
I think the other thing too is you mentioned it, just how bad it's been for Mayfield. And now he gets McMillan, he gets Evans back, which is good. But does that automatically make his play improve? I'm not sure. And we're going to get an answer on this in a little bit here.
And how bad it's been for the Colts as well. Like again, it's not only Sauce Gardner now out, it's Charvarius Ward suffering multiple concussions out for the year as well. They just have no pieces in their secondary anymore. So I think it's going to be a pretty easy layup for Darnold. And again, I'm just going to take that floor until they run the ball and kill the clock.
This is more of a fantasy football philosophy thing, but Joe King posts in here, Egbuka is a, quote, dance with the one that brought you, end quote, guy for me. Where do you stand on that, John, when it comes to, we get into the playoffs, we're getting this deep in the season, and we have to start considering, and we'll talk about Justin Jefferson, but players like that, where it's just the situation heading into week 15 is radically different than what the situation was earlier in the season. And I think it's difficult sometimes to weigh those sort of things. Do you have a set rubric, a set process that you go through when you look at the new situation, the new normal heading into the playoffs, as opposed to what it was for the majority of the regular season?
It's case-by-case basis for me. I don't necessarily believe in start your studs, but I do follow trends like at least 4 to 6 weeks out. Like, for instance, last week, and this is not something I would have suggested for anyone, but again, we go back to me and you doing this for so long and having so many teams, especially last week before the playoffs really heated up. And I just had so many decisions to make where in one of my biggest leagues, I benched Oronde Gadsden for Dawson Knox, even with Dalton Kincaid active, just because we had a month trend where Oronde Gadsden is actually droppable. I'm just not going to drop him just in case one of their wide receivers gets injured. But very clearly, Oronde Gadsden's a player you cannot start at all in fantasy. Like you poach like Colby Parkinson, someone else as a streamer over Gadsden every single week. And so I just followed that trend. And I think we're at the point where if someone comes to the playoffs and they have no reason for the last month to be in your lineup, even though they're a stud, you get them out of your lineup. But again, Egbuka, Michael Wilson, they are not that. Egbuka has not been that because he's still getting the volume in a very good matchup. So it just depends. I look at every player case by case.
So we have this question from Broly619. This is a non-PPR question, but it's weird because it's 3 receivers that Broly has to decide on here. And it's Tetairoa McMillan at New Orleans. It is Emeka Egbuka tonight against the Falcons, and then Michael Wilson, who is taking on the Texans on the road. Now, I just did my local fantasy football show before this, John, and I got some pushback on Tetairoa McMillan. Now, I like him this week. I think it's a good matchup against New Orleans. You could probably delve deeper into this than I could. He only gets the 1 catch last week against the Rams. But before that, he saw 7 targets, 12 targets, 8 targets, 6 targets, 10 targets. Like, he's still getting involved. I still like him here. I think I would probably play him. Well, I shouldn't say that because Michael Wilson's involved too. I'm going to go back to it. I'm going to say McMillan is probably the guy here I like best out of these 3. What about you?
McMillan is the safer one. I think he has the highest floor. I think personally I'd suck it up with Egbuka just because, again, I'm not really worried about the last month. I should be much more worried, given that the results have been bad. I know everyone is looking for all the reasons and the ways out of Egbuka. So again, I think projections and rankings would say Tetairoa, and you should go that way. But understanding my own risk aversity, Because again, I don't mind just following the process and sucking it up with the losses. I would personally start Egbuka.
I totally get it. I mean, I think the part of the reason that we get these questions on here is because they are razor thin. Like, and it's not always an open or shut case. How about this one? You talk about tight end premium stuff. Let's go really deep at tight end.
Let's do it
with the Commanders. No Zach Ertz. Pour one out for him. Hopefully he'll be back next year, but I'm not holding my breath. What about John Bates versus Ben Sinnott? Is it Sinnott or Sinnott, John?
Sinnott.
Sinnott. Okay, Ben Sinnott. I will not pronounce it Sinnott again. Ben Sinnott and John Bates, the two replacements at tight end for the Commanders. They get the Giants this week. Certainly an exploitable matchup. If you can only pick one of these Commanders tight ends, can't believe I'm asking this. Who would it be? Who would you rather prefer here in this situation?
I think it would be John Bates. I know we all want Ben Sinnott to be a thing, but even at the Senior Bowl, he had all his reps as a fullback. He got drafted being declared as a fullback. That's what he's basically been. He's been similar to who was the Packers H-back? Josiah DeGuara. He's been closer to that profile than ever playing tight end in the league. So again, he's a freak athlete like Luke McCaffrey. There's another universe. It's not this one. There's another universe where Luke McCaffrey is like a wide receiver 2 on an NFL team every single week. I just don't think it happens for guys like Ben Sinnott, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, and I think who pointed this out, Joe King, must be a 30-team league. It very well could be a 30-team league.
You want a sick one is Jeremy Ruckert that no one's talking about. So Mason Taylor, DNP Wednesday and Thursday. Stone Smart, concussion, not expected to play. Brady Cook came off the bench last week on 30 pass attempts, targeted his tight ends on 30% of his throws, and the Jaguars are allowing the second most yards per game to tight ends. I think Jeremy Ruckert is actually a pretty great streamer.
Yeah, that's not even sick at this point. I mean, that just makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
To start Jeremy Ruckert. Okay, let's get into this here, and I want to talk about the Bengals. Mike Petraglia reported this afternoon that T. Higgins, who's dealing with a concussion, was seen practicing again today, limited in practice today. It was reported, I don't know if this was a Petraglia post on X or whatever, but he was very limited yesterday, now just normal limited today. I can't believe that it's even a conversation that Higgins could be playing this week, John, but I'll bring it up. If Higgins is active, I am playing him 100%. I understand the risk of re-injury, and he could leave this game too. If he doesn't play, Gesicki, yes. Yoshibas, yes. Tinsley, yeah. I don't know if there is another Bengals pass catcher that I would want to flex out if Higgins can't go. How would you sort of handle the Higgins situation if he's active or if he's inactive?
I think everyone outside of Jamar Chase is pretty thin if T. Higgins is out. Again, like I talked about on Thanksgiving, we got 80 plays, not expecting that. It's also a brand new game because so many wacky things happen with the Ravens, multiple turnovers. Remember the fumble at the goal line because Lamar can never – everything Lamar does is spectacular, even his interceptions and fumbles. They're always just the wildest things you've ever seen in your life. Not only that, but the Bengals had an easy time moving the ball, but because the Ravens' red zone defense has been elite all year, they ended up kicking 6 field goals in that game. And so it's really tough to even compare a couple weeks ago to this matchup. And so because of that, I at least trust Joe Burrow to an extent and Jamar Chase, regardless of T. Higgins' presence. We've seen the Ravens getting fully healthy because we know post-bye, week 8 on, they're an entirely different team. No more Cooper Rush or Tyler Huntley. Everyone came back on defense as well. So they've just been an entirely different unit. But even so, they're still leaking big games to opposing wide receiver ones. Even going back a couple weeks ago, beyond DK Metcalf having Jamar Chase, who they allowed over 100 yards to both of them. John Mechie even got there for 6 catches, 65 yards, and a touchdown. Mike Gesicki also pretty thin, in my opinion, because post-bye again, week 8 on, no tight end has scored double-digit fantasy points or reached 50 receiving yards against the Ravens at all. They've been locked down against that position in particular. And Gesicki, even last week, I know he got cute. He got there, but it was still a route on only 47% of dropbacks. Maybe if T. Higgins is out, the 16.5% target share is sticky. But because of Noah Fant this year, like the splits from last season without T. Higgins do not carry over. It's an entirely different conversation. And so I think it's going to be more that game about Derrick Henry versus Jamar Chase, as opposed to everyone getting involved because we're going to get the play volume.
Regarding the Joe Burrow comment, speaking of the Bengals, where he was talking this week about how he's got a lot of stuff going on right now. It was very bizarre. It was very nebulous. I didn't know exactly what he was talking about. Was this just a case of him rambling in a press conference, or is there something here, maybe of a deeper concern to dynasty league owners, or something else that nobody's really talking about with Joe Burrow right now? What did you make of his comments to the media?
I know the comp was to Andrew Luck and how he felt, and that he just really feels like there's no hope. And let's be honest, there probably isn't hope in Cincinnati, because the ownership, as they've shown us for over a decade, does not care at all. And so will they ever put a winning product on the field? And then thus will Joe Burrow just like go into the moonlight completely injured like Andrew Luck? Maybe. I don't know. But right now the contract, he's making $275 million. I also don't think he's someone like Andrew Luck who actually went sailing, like just got away from notification entirely. I don't think he's that kind of person. Maybe he is. I don't know his off-field life. So yeah, I'm not sure, honestly. I hope that doesn't happen. But honestly, if it happened, it's the Bengals fans should turn on their team and not cheer for the Bengals anymore, because I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but like for me and the Mavs fans, whenever Luka got traded, and Dirk Nowitzki, the 2010, 2011 Mavericks are my favorite team, favorite player of all time. But when ownership gets in the way, like Browns fans, like Rams fans can tell you, that's the one time I feel like, regardless of being born and cheering for your hometown team, you're allowed to step away. You no longer get to be loyal whenever ownership is the one getting in the way. And I feel like ownership is the one thwarting the Bengals' progress.
That could be. And it'd be a sad situation if that were the case.
Oh, for sure.
More to come on that in the offseason when we learn more about, and this could have been just two. I mean, you know, you think about everything he did to bust his tail to get back, and this is coming off a loss that essentially eliminated him from playoff competition. Maybe he's still dealing with that. I don't know. But certainly we haven't heard the end of this, and I'm sure we're going to talk more about this in the coming weeks and months. I was going to ask you about Jordan Addison here, but I think we've talked enough about him. So let's switch this to JJ McCarthy. He was 16 of 23, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns in a 31-0 shutout over the Commanders this past weekend. Commanders defense certainly not going to be confused with the Steel Curtain or the Purple People Eaters anytime soon, John. But this was a game that I think McCarthy needed to have. And now he gets Dallas this week. The Dallas rush defense, correct me if I'm wrong, has been fairly stout since the NFL trade deadline when they acquired Quinnen Williams. But you could still beat him through the air. And I'm wondering the possibility of JJ McCarthy continuing to, the Dallas Cowboys pass defense continuing to show a lackluster production, with McCarthy connecting with Addison, Jefferson, maybe a little Hawkinson. Your best handicap on the Vikings passing game this weekend in Big D, specifically for people who are considering McCarthy in a Superflex league, and Justin Jefferson, who we don't know what to do with him after his performance over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
There's definitely still some hope here, again, because of just the lack of talent Dallas has in their secondary. Paying Deron Bland, for example, as a number 1 cornerback, and he's genuinely too small to match up with anyone, so much so that Marvin Harrison Jr. not only had a career high in catches against the Cowboys, he did it all in the first half, and then too small Deron Bland. Like when Marvin Harrison Jr. is dunking on you, you got problems, because he's the one with all the problems so far in his career. But you just look back at even what they've done despite adding Quinnen Williams. On the ground, stout. Ashton Genty, 1 yard per carry. Saquon Barkley, 2.2 yards per carry. Jahmyr Gibbs, 3 touchdowns, but 3.5 yards per carry. Been awesome. And remember, Quinnen Williams was PFF's number 1 interior run defender when he came over from the Jets. He was already that dude for the Jets all year long, and he's just brought his presence over to Dallas within the trenches. But beyond that, when you're passing over the top of him, it's still simple. Jared Goff averaged 9 yards per attempt. Patrick Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns. Jalen Hurts tacked on 2 rushing touchdowns. And that's how I think we're going to get McCarthy there ultimately. I still don't think he has a good passing ceiling, because he even last week, he was bad through the air. It just happened that he played. Look at the Commanders, for example, the last month, which is why Jackson Dart and the passing game for the Giants is an amazing start, because the last month, the Commanders defense has fallen apart entirely in their secondary. They just have no bodies out there playing cornerback. And so even Patrick Mahomes rushed for 30 yards. I think that's why you play McCarthy, because not only he has multiple touchdowns in his range of outcomes against the secondary, but the rushing floor has always been there regardless of the matchup. And so it just seems to me like a fringe QB1 play that I'll suck it up and play depending on the start-sit question.
Do you have any strong takes about JJ McCarthy as far as like dynasty goes, or as far as his career? I have been fairly staunch on this show, saying that I'm not giving up on him. I still see the talent. I still see the possibility. I just don't think I've seen enough of him to make a case one way or the other. How about you?
I completely agree. And although everything we've seen has been bad, I at least hope the Vikings bring in competition similar to Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, and then let training camp and practices play it out throughout the offseason, because I think at least that is worth it given what he's shown, because everything else in the organization, even like look at the last month from Brian Flores' defense, they're still playing the hell for him. Like they are just out there doing so many great things against great quarterbacks too. So they're still playing for their coaches right now. It's just literally comes down to JJ McCarthy sinking them. And so I would hope they bring in a bridge quarterback, at least to push McCarthy, if not teach him a little bit more.
Yeah, and we'll see who some of those quarterbacks could be once we get to the offseason. But the pieces are there for Minnesota to be very competitive next year. We'll see what happens there. In that same division, Jayden Reed made his return to Green Bay this past week, John. Limited in practice today with a shoulder injury, and it's not a great matchup against Denver. He ran a route on just over 60% of the Packers' pass plays last week in his first game back. Dontavian Wicks and Matthew Golden were basically, I think they played a combined 11 snaps or something super low. So it was Reed, it was Dobbs, it was Watson. I have always had the opinion over the last 2 or 3 years, I don't trust Packers pass catchers. I was bullied into drafting Tucker Kraft towards the end of drafting season, and I didn't want to do it. And it was great for a little bit until it completely wasn't after he tore his ACL. But in regards to Jayden Reed, I think that there's reason to have him on your bench. I don't know if I want to play him in Denver. And quite frankly, he might be a guy that I'm always breaking ties against, and he'll be on more of my benches going forward than starts, especially with the rise of Christian Watson here too. When you look at, let's just talk about week 15 here with Watson, Dobbs, Reed, any of these guys getting you excited to be solid, if not above average flexes this week?
Yeah, well, I think Christian Watson's closer to Michael Wilson than people give him credit for. I can't imagine benching Christian Watson in any matchup so far. Not only that, but I'm going to watch what I say here because I understand the range of outcomes for this game. It could be very bad. I think the Packers could score some points in this game.
Oh, wow.
Since the Broncos lead the league in their use of man coverage, obviously, because they have the talent in their secondary. And since Christian Watson came back in week 8, Jordan Love is second in EPA per dropback with 10 touchdowns, 0 picks against man coverage. We've also seen the Broncos, even at home, get into some freaky game scripts. And it always comes back to the opposing quarterback pushing them. Think about Jackson Dart and that 40-40 game. Think about Marcus Mariota a couple weeks ago on prime time, going into overtime and having 290 yards and a couple touchdowns. Dak Prescott also in garbage time got there as the Broncos just dunked on them. I think the Packers and Jordan Love, if they go that way, if they just want to run the ball into the trenches, it'll be a low-scoring affair. If the Packers in a must-win game, as everyone's still jostling with the Bears for the number 1 seed there, if they want to score points, I think they can. And so I'm a little bit more excited about this game than a lot of people.
The other thing I'll bring up too, and not say I don't think he misses this game. I was talking with Justice Mosqueda, who covers the Packers for Acme Packing Company today.
Of course.
And I asked him, because Josh Jacobs did not practice yesterday, did not practice again today. I said, scale of 0 to 10, what's your level of concern about Jacobs missing this game? He said 2, but he did allow for the possibility that maybe they're going to manage this knee a little bit more. Now, if that means more Emmanuel Wilson, okay, maybe it means that. But it could also mean more Jordan Love and more passing. We've seen Green Bay kind of settle to slow these games down, shorten these games up, and just run. Maybe the path to victory here is more of what we saw on Thanksgiving with Detroit, where we were seeing them take more chances, right? With Jordan Love in the passing game, he ends up with 4 touchdowns. We have seen it more and more There's a joke here I'm John, I'm in Northeast Wisconsin. I think I told you that before. Maybe I didn't. But every time the Toyota-thon, holiday sale goes on, Jordan Love is a sponsor or is a spokesperson of it, and he just goes crazy. And he's going crazy again for Toyota. I think it's more of the case that for whatever reason, Matt LaFleur just and Jordan Love, they always seem to have this offense. It didn't happen necessarily last year, but by and large, they always seem to be clicking a little bit more as far as points and yardage and just efficiency goes in December. And now we're in December here, and we're seeing it again. I have not heard anybody talk about the Packers putting up points, but I got to tell you, you're making a strong case for it. It makes perfect sense.
And Jordan Love has a little bit of Tony Romo in him, and that he's a true gunslinger. And so, like, when we take away Tucker Kraft, which naturally, as it did last week, puts Jayden Reed on the field more because they need their playmakers on the field, and Tucker Kraft was quite literally one of the best tight ends at everything he does in the league, you don't have to squint to see like a wild card gunslinger like Jordan Love suddenly just dropping back and launching it deep because that's their way of winning this game. And then, of course, the Broncos getting a little wild because Bo Nix, not necessarily a good quarterback, but he can get wild. He can get a little freaky with his fantasy points. So, again, we've seen it before, and I do think it could be a game where we see it in this one.
I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about this. Number one, because I don't know how many people it helps. Number two,
just start Christian Watson. That's the easy. Oh, okay.
No. Yes, that's true. That's true as well. But as far as this next topic goes, I feel like you don't want to talk about this, and maybe you can just slam the door on this right now. But the last two reports I've seen coming out of Indianapolis about Phillip Rivers is that Stephen Holder, who covers the Colts for ESPN, said that the Colts are prepping Rivers to start right away this week against Seattle. Holder said, quote, "It isn't difficult to tell who a team is prepping to start. That player is Rivers." Okay. We get this from him. Then we get Ian Rappaport less than 10 minutes ago posting on X. It would not surprise him if Rivers starts week 15 against the Seahawks. Schefter and Rappaport and all these national guys, there's certain things that they can say and that they can't say. And there's certain things in how they can say it that they're able to put out there. I think this is Rappaport not being able to say Rivers is going to start, but basically telling us that Rivers is going to start. So he's 44 years old. To my knowledge, the second grandfather to take snaps under center in this league. And it's going to affect what we do with Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Tyler Warren, Jonathan Taylor, and I'm forgetting somebody else, Alec Pierce. You have kind of just slammed the door shut on this. You don't want to mess around with it. Yes, you're starting Taylor, maybe Tyler Warren, but everybody else, you're washing your hands of it, right?
Right. And you're definitely starting Jonathan Taylor, again, who has, for being the guy that got you here, he's also kind of the guy that's going to eliminate you too, unfortunately, just because the matchups and the situation has gotten so dire in Indianapolis. They've gone from one of the most fun storylines in the NFL to literally a circus with Phillip Rivers. I think it's fun. Like, I need some fun. I'm tired. We got too many football games. We got a month left, so much so that for Riley Leonard being on the team all year long, they don't care. They're like, yeah, we're just going to call up our friend. He's 44 years old. He's coaching a high school football team, and he's just going to play for us on Sunday against the best defense in the league. That's fine. I think it's fun, but let's all be real here. It's not going to end well. It's just, there's no way it can end well.
Well, you're the first person I've heard bring up death as a possible outcome.
I mean, it's literally the first time there's a non-zero chance, and no one could tell me otherwise. I'm worried. Like, we're quite literally putting a grandpa out there. Like, literally, I'm worried. I'm very worried.
And I'll say this too, in regards to, this isn't a fantasy thing, but like, how does Brett Rippon feel where he's still on this team? How does Riley Leonard feel where he's getting in full practices, mind you, with Indianapolis with a PCL sprain, and they're still going to turn to this guy? Now, granted, I've heard that Steichen and him, they're still good buddies. They still exchange notes every single week. I got to believe, I don't think it was Rivers that initiated this, but I got to believe at some point Steichen said to him, like, what would be hilarious is if you came back to the NFL the year that you're going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame, and you move back your clock 5 years to come help us secure a playoff spot and make a deep run in the postseason. Wouldn't that just be hilarious? And Rivers is probably kind of like, that would be funny, But I think we should seriously look at it. And now here we are. We're talking about Phillip Rivers 5 years later.
And to be fair, this is supposed to be Anthony Richardson, but that orbital fracture in practice kind of threw all of their plans for a loop.
So there's no question that if Richardson was not on IR, they would not be looking at Rivers, right?
Absolutely not. Zero, no chance. No.
All right. So let's talk.
But it's the same organization that brought you. I'm going to call up my friend I drink whiskey with, Jeff Saturday, who's never been a head coach at any part of football throughout his entire career. And he's going to coach and he's going to go 1-7. So, let's just let Indianapolis do what they do and just toil away into non-existence.
You bring that up. What do you think Jim Irsay would say? And is Jim Irsay's daughter at all responsible for something?
I think this is a move like Jim Irsay sitting down from the heavens. This is such a Jim Irsay, like, I'm just going to run this my way. Don't care. I'm just going to call it my buddies kind of thing. Yeah. And also Tom Smith brings up in the chat, Cam Newton's pissed. Cam Newton would not be part of the news cycle. Like, the only reason reporters latched onto that is because Cam Newton said he was pissed.
Yeah.
Like, Cam Newton, of course, because he's Cam Newton, made himself part of the news cycle. So, like, get out of here, Cam Newton. You're not part of this.
He is a master marketer. I will tell you that. When it comes,
he does like himself some Cam Newton.
Yeah, Cam Newton likes himself some Cam Newton. I had liked myself some Trey Benson after James Conner went down.
Yeah.
And it stinks because then Benson ends up getting placed on IR after kind of an innocuous thing. Like all of a sudden it was like, yeah, he's not practicing. Oh, now he's on IR. And now he's going to come back, and now he's not. Now he's out for the year. The Cardinals did not activate him from injured reserve. So when you look at two parts of this, we'll talk about the immediate first. Then I want to talk about Trey Benson as far as his role in this Cardinals backfield in 2026 as it stands right now. Bam Knight, yes. Michael Carter, find a roster, but I don't want to start him. How good do you feel about Bam Knight in your starting lineup this week as a flex, John?
Not great, but I understand he's kind of the guy where I'm like, if I have to, then why not? It does also make me a little more concerned that so far Amari DiMercato has been limited in practice, which means he could be back. And if that's the case, it's really going to make it a three-headed timeshare as opposed to just Bam Knight and Michael Carter right now. But so far, even this past game, 45-10, Knight out-touched Carter 7-2 until it was 45-10 in the final quarter. Then they gave Carter the touches to ice the clock and get the hell out of there. So I think it's Bam Knight. But really what we're asking is who's starting in week 17 against the Bengals? Yeah. And if you're preparing for that, I think Amari DiMercato is the guy you want to pick up if you're not starting Bam Knight in week 15 and 16. Because again, but when we saw DiMercato last, he was en route to out-touch Knight and Carter, kind of because Jonathan Gannon, like, they're not going to ever say this, but he feels like he owes him after publicly hitting him on the sideline. And so I think DiMercato comes back as the starter, and I want to be ahead of that for week 17 if you're jostling your roster anywhere.
I think that if you have the open spot, DiMercato makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
Right now, for sure. Benson, as far as his dynasty value goes, so if you look at James Conner, technically he's under contract next year, but there's a pretty easy out for Arizona to get out of that contract. Trey Benson is still under contract with the Cardinals on his rookie deal for another 2 years. He was not a first-round pick, so he doesn't have that fifth-year option. What do you make of as it stands right now here, December 11th, 2025? Do you think Trey Benson enters the 2026 season as the starting running back, as the number one guy, or do you think Arizona hits free agency, or I should say the likelihood that Arizona hits free agency or the draft to incorporate a player onto their roster that could at least be a 1B from the get-go?
I doubt they go into the season with only Trey Benson, especially given they had James Conner to a lucrative contract in free agency and then added Trey Benson with day two capital. Having said that, Trey Benson, I guess, will be the de facto starter. And also, I just don't know what else they do because Kyler Murray's never playing for the Cardinals again. You know, the Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford trade proved to us that anyone can be dealt. Money does not matter. Teams will happily take on cap if they believe in the player. So Kyler Murray's going somewhere else. I hope it's the Vikings, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
But right now, I just don't have – I don't know what their offense looks like, honestly. Like, what is an iteration? Because Marvin Harrison Jr. is still in his rookie deal. They're not going to get out from him, even though this year they're done with him. They're absolutely sick of the questions. They're sick of him. We may not see him again the rest of the year, especially if Michael Wilson, Jacoby Brissett, and Trey McBride keep leading the way. but it's not going to be Jacoby Brissett as a veteran bridge next year either. So I just don't know what they do as on their offense as a whole.
Why do you think Brissett would not come back next year? Curious.
I think he could come back as a veteran, but he's not someone you actually like build a team around at this point of his at this stage of his career. He's clearly someone you trust as a backup, especially because he now understands the offense, and you can have him do that. But you need him to incorporate a rookie into the system if you want to continue building for the future. Also, remember, like Monty Ossenfort is that kind of GM that he's a very sharp guy who does think towards the future.
And listen, getting the quarterback thing right is so integral, especially when you consider how tough that division is for Arizona.
Yeah,
you're if you don't have a quarterback that you can build around, especially with the pieces that you have. Quite frankly, talk about building around. You have McBride, you have Benson, you have Wilson. I mean, there are and Harrison too, to a certain degree. Like the pieces are there. If you get a good quarterback there, all of a sudden it's looking real good to compete against the Seattles, the Rams, and the Niners of the world in that division. CeeDee Lamb practiced fully today, John, and it sounds like as long as he doesn't have any sort of recurrence of any concussion symptoms, he's going to be good to go this week. Any qualms about starting CeeDee Lamb if he's active this week? If he's active, we got to play him, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I don't like for T. Higgins. it doesn't matter. When we do start sits and you don't have to make it till Sunday, I don't know why. I get hyper-focused like everyone who's in the playoffs and start moving guys in and out. And I'm like, wait, why am I even wasting this bandwidth? Like I have little bandwidth this time of the year and I'm wasting it thinking about a start sit. I literally don't have to make until Sunday at 11 a.m. Who cares? But with T. Higgins, I've been doing that, like overthinking it because I'm really not sure. And again, I don't think the organization cares about T. Higgins' health. So he shouldn't play, but it would, and any other player on 31 teams wouldn't play, but T. Higgins could play. And so if T. Higgins plays, you're starting him. CeeDee Lamb is already practicing in full on Thursday ahead of a Sunday night game. I'll go as far to say I'm 100% positive he's going to play, and you're absolutely playing him.
Let me ask you this. Brian Flournoy, who had his not one, but two really good games this season with Lamb hurt, are we at the injury away type running back status with him on rosters right now? What I mean by that is, obviously you want to stockpile as many backup running backs as you can. Is there value in Flournoy for these last 3 weeks, given that he's shown it when Lamb goes down that he can actually churn out a really good, top 15 wide receiver performance? Is he worth a roster spot here now with Lamb healthy?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because, I talked about Brian Flores and the Vikings defense, for example, over the last month, limiting every quarterback to less than double-digit passing points. Like even Jordan Love had 130 yards through the air. Sam Darnold, probably the toughest competition they had, averaged 4.9 yards per attempt. Flores just had him seeing ghost out there. And then last week, of course, Jayden Daniels, before he got injured, was a 9 of 20. Like he's just, you bring him in, and then Flores has been knocking them down. They've been playing so well. But Dak also is still playing he's not going to be an MVP because the team is bad. But like Dak is still playing an MVP level, so much so that I'm trusting him no matter the matchup. And because of that, we can continue getting two wide receivers, Lamb and Pickens there. But because of that, if we lose Pickens or Lamb, I do think Flournoy is an interesting prospect. He's in his second year, so it's not really a prospect. But coming out of college, he did make Bruce Feldman's freaks list. Like who's a superb athlete, a freak athlete who just really never got an opportunity last year. So yeah, I think Flournoy is just fine if you need an option. You're struggling at receiver.
And like to be honest with you, I'm only deploying him if Lamb or Pickens were to
correct.
Go down,
yeah. I brought him up in my waiver wire at ETR, for example, because thinking Lamb was going to miss this game, a short turnaround for a concussion. Yeah. But now there's no point unless you just want to roster Flournoy for insurance.
Keaton Mitchell practiced on Wednesday. Have not seen the practice report today. He had a knee injury in last week's game against the Steelers, was ruled out with it. He did have an MRI after the game. It was minor. It looks like he's going to be playing this week against the Bengals. This is not a question of, hey, do I flex out Keaton Mitchell or Rasheen Ali? What do you think if you do have Derrick Henry, or maybe if you don't have Derrick Henry and you're playing in a large tournament or something like, and you want to have this backup running back for Baltimore, would you rather have Ali or would you rather have Mitchell here, John?
I would have Mitchell if health wasn't an issue, and the report was that it's a minor injury.
Yeah.
And so I think it's Mitchell is the person you want. There's some contingency running backs hiding because people think just because a running back gets work while the starter is healthy, that's the backup. But that's not the case for a lot of teams. Like the actual backup, who would be a workhorse, is not being used because the starter is a workhorse. Ray Davis is the perfect example of that. If James Cook were ever injured, you don't want Ty Johnson. You want Ray Davis. And the Bills showed us that last year whenever James Cook missed a game and Ray Davis came in for 130 yards from scrimmage and 24 touches. Ray Davis just can't be used because James Cook is the workhorse right now. Ty Johnson is nothing more than a complimentary pass catching back who can't handle 10 touches. So you want Ray Davis. And that's similar to what you just mentioned, that if Derrick Henry were injured, it's not Rasheen Ali. You want Keaton Mitchell, who's a walking 10-yard play.
Colby Parkinson has to be discussed because this is an FFPC show, tight end premium format. 3 of 5 targets were snared by him last week. Only 32 yards, but he does get in the end zone. And this is his 4th touchdown in the last 5 games. Tyler Higbee is on injured reserve. It's been the Parkinson show since then. He ran a pass route this past week on 22 of the 31 dropbacks for Matthew Stafford, targeted on just under a quarter of his routes, which is really good for a tight end. I have to ask, against Detroit this week, in maybe the second highest total I've seen of any NFL game this season. Last time I looked at it was like 54.5, something like insane like that. Parkinson, tight end premium. Given you could flex out 2 players in the FFPC, should Parkinson be in more starting lineups than on benches this week, John?
Yeah, absolutely. And the last 3 games without Tyler Higbee, it's become clear. He leads all tight ends in red zone targets. Matthew Stafford's also going for MVP, and the Rams are a team that care about that. In the past, Sean McVay has got his guys and his incentives. Think back to even when Cam Akers was on the roster, and they activated him early, knowing he couldn't play, but because Cam Akers' pension was on the line, because if all things worked out correctly and he had been in the league for 10 years, that's when your NFL pension's activated. You have to be available for, I think it's 15 games across 10 years. And Sean McVay activated Cam Akers knowing he couldn't play, but he wanted to keep his pension alive. This organization cares about guys like that. They are going for Matthew Stafford, and they are playing for his MVP. And it's just the cleanest spot possible. The Lions, even with all their injuries last month, are leading the league in man coverage in that time on 49% of their snaps. Matthew Stafford this year is second in yards per attempt against man coverage. The second most passing touchdowns as well, 25 touchdowns, only behind Drake May, of course. Not to mention that the last 3 games without Tyler Higbee, we've actually removed a lot of the 13 personnel and targets to other players. Thus, we got Puka Nacua back. He's been targeted on 42% of his routes the last 3 games. Devontae Adams against man coverage, top 10 being targeted at the 10th highest rate of his routes. And then Colby Parkinson, again, still leading this team in red zone targets at his position. So it's just clean as possible for the Rams, who have a 30.5-point team total, the highest of any game. That, like, I look at that game and the Lions can get frisky. That's why Jared Goff is a boomer bust quarterback. But the thing I had the most confidence in of any team, of any players, in week 15 is that the Rams are putting up 35. Like, they're going to dunk on the Lions, and it's on Dan Campbell, who, by the way, is not going to punt. He's coming. He knows they're dogs. He wants this win. It's on Dan Campbell to respond, and I think he's going to respond.
Just a quick MVP question. If Drake May were the grizzled veteran for Los Angeles and Matthew Stafford would have been the young and upcoming guy, do you think Stafford would still be in the lead for MVP?
I think that loss to Seattle really just pushed him back. Well, the loss to the Panthers, even though the Panthers game, the Rams were moving the ball with ease. The offense was so good. They just had, like Thanksgiving of the Ravens, they had some freaky turnovers, including that turnover at the goal line by Stafford as well. But those losses stack up towards your MVP status, whereas at least so far, it's an easy schedule. I hope the voters know that. We knew that coming into the offseason too, that the Patriots had the easiest schedule of the entire league, so nothing they're playing is shocking right now. But at least Drake May still has going into Buffalo in prime time and winning on his resume over Josh Allen. So I still think Drake May is definitely the MVP just because of the little, not big ones, but little bumps in the road Stafford's had.
You know what's wild, and this will be fun, actually. So this week, we have Drake May versus Josh Allen. Great, it's the Patriots Bills, but it for MVP voters, it could be Drake May versus Josh Allen here. And then the following week on Thursday Night Football, the quasi Thursday Night Football finale, because in week 17 it's on Christmas night, which we still have football.
I mean, don't get me started. Like, how are we gonna do work Monday and Tuesday and then Christmas Eve? What are we doing?
It's gonna be crazy. Week 16 next Thursday, the Rams visit Seattle, and that is an island game, a showcase for Matthew Stafford as well. So we're going to learn a lot about the potential MVPs coming up in the next couple of weeks. The last thing I'm going to mention before we take a quick break, and Carlos Bob, I see your question. We're going to get to it, I promise you. I want to bring up Marcus Mariota, if I'm pronouncing that right, after Chris Collinsworth has totally messed me up. Ian Rappaport announced yesterday that Dan Quinn stated Mariota is going to be starting over Jayden Daniels, but they're not ruling Daniels out for the season. This is not a super flex question, John. What do you make of a single quarterback league and starting Marcus Mariota against the Giants this week? How strong of a play is that?
You could even feel the way the wind was blowing early in the week. Like in my Monday night waiver wire column, I had Marcus Mariota as the top quarterback pickup. It's just a spot we want to be involved in. It's such an ugly defensive game between the Giants and Commanders. There's going to be a lot of points and a lot of players who get there in this one. Marcus Mariota also continuing to add it with his legs, which the Giants are still allowing right now. So I think Marcus Mariota is quite easily like the best streamer available in every league this week.
I know let me ask you this. My 12-year-old son, we share a team together. We have a decision tonight, or this week, I should say, not tonight. Mariota or Bo Nix, which one would you rather play? We have Mariota in there right now.
I would start Mariota.
There you go. Okay.
I would start Mariota over Baker Mayfield tonight too. Easily,
yeah, I think I would too. I think I would too. It's close, but I think I would. And we'll get into more Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers and the Falcons when we come back. Carlos Bob has a question about Emeka Egbuka versus T. Higgins and some other stuff going on there. We're going to get to that as well. Want to remind everybody, time is running out on the Thursday night FFPC Weekly Challenge. You have about 18 minutes, maybe 17 minutes and change right now, or 16 minutes and change to register for that. No draft, no salary cap. You can just pick 10 or 12 players. Win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100-team contest, one player per NFL team. Register now at myffpc.com. He's established the Run's own John Daigle. He joins me tonight on FFPC Insider Access. My name is Eric Balkman. We roll on the Better Sports Network right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. You know, we all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at my FFPC. You can go out and you can take the number one running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high-stakes games are. That's where the best experts play, and that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio. FFPC champion, and the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
Thank you, Andrew Cooper from Fantasy Alarm, for that endorsement of the FFPC Weekly Challenge. Once again, no draft, no salary cap. Just pick 10 players, or if you want to play with kickers and defenses, you can pick 12 players. Win up to $2,500. You can play in a 10-team, a 30-team, or a 100-team contest right now. MyFFPC.com. Only one player per NFL team. So if you want Baker Mayfield, you can't have Chris Godwin. If you want Bijan Robinson, you cannot have Kyle Pitts. Register now, myffpc.com. We are joined tonight on FFPC Insider Access by Mr. John Daigle from Establish the Run. Great to have you aboard tonight, John. Let's get into this Thursday night game, and I'll kick things off with the Falcons. So I don't know how much. Well, let me ask you this right now. When you are formulating rankings, projections, when you are writing everything that you do for Establish the Run, do you ever take a peek at, do the Vegas totals and spreads ever factor in to what you think is going to happen in the game, or is that not part of your process?
Oh, it's definitely part of my process. I always like to see where teams are in terms of team totals. And more importantly, what I look at more than team totals is what rises and decreases from overnight Saturday, like look ahead lines, to Monday morning. Like what's moving lines and why, then figuring out they're moving. And I'll push back all the time and I'll be like, that's wrong. Like Vegas is not seeing like this split. Like last week, for example, Bills were the first best defense in terms of passing allowed to opposing quarterbacks until the Texans took it over last week. But without Joey Bosa on the field, the Bills are actually 31st in yards per attempt allowed. And so I got into Joe Burrow and like Joe Burrow stacks, in DFS at other sites, because I was like, actually, even in the snow, the Bengals have outs here. Like they have a high ceiling that no one sees because they're not looking at the Joey Bosa split. And I wrote about that in my matchups column to Establish the Run. And so sometimes I'll push back on Vegas like that because I just think they miss a player, a key player. Lane Johnson for the Eagles, again is another one. Joe Watt for the Chargers. Like the Chargers passing game, it has no ceiling anymore. Like they're just capped because without Joe Watt, Justin Herbert's been terrible under pressure all year. He's averaging 6.5 yards per attempt, and we haven't had Joe Watt for over 190 plays this year. So I think Vegas just doesn't see something. Well, they probably do, but I have an ego enough to push back on some instances.
How impressed were you with the Chargers getting that win over the Eagles, knowing that Herbert had the limitations with the left hand, and obviously, as you mentioned, no Slater, obviously, for that offensive line in that game as well. At least they got Hampton back. But how impressive was that victory on Monday Night Football for you?
Impressive. It's unfortunate because it was definitely like if you were watching it live at a bar, it was the worst game of the year. I mean, it was a miserable experience, but also not shocking that the running backs got there. I benched Gadsden. I didn't expect the pass catchers to do anything, but the running backs without Jordan Davis without Jalen Carter this year, the Eagles have just given it up to every single running back face. Like 110 yards and a couple touchdowns to Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders in week 1. Cam Scatterbu had 120 yards and 3 touchdowns against them without Jalen Carter in week 6. And this past game, 30 touches, 170 yards and a touchdown to the Chargers running back. So we're crossing our fingers that it's Ashton Genty's turn.
Ironically, I was watching that game at a bar. And I didn't here's what's great about it, John. I didn't really have any skin in the game as far as like fantasy goes, but 2 of the guys I was watching it with, one was the bartender, one was my buddy. They both had the Chargers plus 1.5. So I scummed out a few free drinks on their behalf after that game, after overtime ended. So it ended up being a fun Monday night. Not a great Tuesday morning. That's another story. Let's get back into Kirk Cousins here tonight. The super flex aspect of fantasy football allows us to play 2 quarterbacks. We've seen it with the FFPC over the course of the last 5-6 years, or maybe even longer than that. How long we've had super flex stuff. Is Cousins entering super flex startable value tonight, or is this a guy you still want to stay away from?
I would normally say we should stay away from him, but I just can't get his 2 performances where he basically did all of his damage against the Bucs last year when he had I believe it was over 300 yards in both games, correct?
I'm going to look that up right now.
I'm going to quickly look it up as well. But first game against the Bucs, 500 yards and 4 touchdowns, and the second game, 270 yards and 4 touchdowns. No picks in either game. And so I can't get those 2 games out of my mind when I'm thinking about the Buck versus Todd Bowles and how he already knows they're going to blitz him and how does he respond. So I think it's fine Superflex for this week, but he's not someone I'm probably touching any other week.
What about Tyler Algier tonight? When you consider how easy is not the right word. When you consider how less of an effort it's been for him to score touchdowns this year versus Bijan Robinson, does that make him more playable, or does the Bucs rush defense scare you enough to say there's no way in God's green earth in Week 15 in the fantasy playoffs can I trot out Algier as one of my flexes?
I think it's a pretty desperate play, similar to he's like a worse version of David Montgomery, where he has one skill set, and we know you can play David Montgomery if you expecting a shootout because he can always get there in the end zone. But I don't think personally this is going to be a shootout. And the Bucs, like the Rams, for example, the Bucs are a stout front seven that you can't run on. And Algier only offers carries between the tackles. So I think his skill set is pretty easily stopped by the Bucs. But again, the great equalizer is falling forward for a 1 or 2 yard score, and he can definitely do that. He has outs to do that.
I want to bring this up too, and maybe this is, oh God, I just realized I got the game on Prime right now. The Buccaneers are wearing their creamsicle uniforms, which I know is exciting. You say, oh God, the Bucs are going to win. I think they have a horrible record wearing those uniforms tonight. So maybe Falcons +6 or Falcons +230 on the money line is the way to go tonight. Getting back to fantasy, no Drake London tonight. Darnell Mooney is obviously going to be the lead receiver here. You could talk about some of the other receivers for Atlanta. I think the only one, if there was one wideout, we'll get to tight ends in a second. If there was one wideout that I'm interested in tonight, it's Mooney, and it's not anybody else. He has not seen more than 5 targets since week 11. 1 for 6 last week, 2 for 25 against the Jets, 3 for 74 at New Orleans. He goes to Tampa tonight. Your thoughts on how strong of a flex play Mooney is as the de facto number 1 wide receiver for Atlanta tonight?
I'm not trying to get there. The Bucs defense has been pretty good. It's been pretty clear when they've fallen apart. It's whenever Jamel Dean was out for multiple games earlier this year. And that's a signal from last year, where this season literally dead last in yards per attempt allowed when Jamel Dean's not been on the field for them in their secondary. So I just genuinely don't think there's an answer at wide receiver. It is only Kyle Pitts. When Drake London's out, no one else is talented enough to get there. Kirk Cousins is 1 more year removed from that serious injury that really hampered his ability. So we can't even copy paste the usage with Darnell Mooney last season to this one. So I understand if you have to, but it's not something I'm trying to start him or be excited about.
Fly Nelly Fly watching us on Twitch tonight, John. Do y'all like Pitts tonight? I do, to the point that I'm going to ask John Daigle from Establish the Run, how close to a must start is Kyle Pitts tonight, knowing that he's active? He has been dealing with the knee injury, so I think there's something you said for that. But I like Pitts quite a bit tonight. The leagues I have him in, he's a slam dunk start, even in non-tight end premium leagues. How much do you like Kyle Pitts against the Bucs this evening?
It's just about the tight ends we've lost along the way. So it's a deep week for tight end streamers, actually, but they're streamers. You don't have as much confidence as you would Kyle Pitts. So he's my 5th tight end. Harold Fannin, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and who am I forgetting? A 4th
George
in there
Kittle?
Somewhere. George Kittle. Those are the only 4 I have ranked ahead of him. I think he's a lock to start. Don't know what's going to happen. That's why when everyone says, do you like Kyle Pitts? It's like, yeah, don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to start him. And that's where my brain goes.
The old Kyle Pitts roller coaster was great last week. 10 targets, 6 catches, 90 yards. Quite frankly, last 2 weeks at the Jets the week before.
Without Drake London. It's pretty much been without Drake London. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great point too. Because with London, it's been a different story.
Yep.
Speaking of those Buccaneers, let's move on and talk about a sort of a macro question, not macro, but more of a wide scope question. What do you think is wrong with Baker Mayfield over the last couple of months, John? Is this something that we as fans, as fantasy analysts, as not that I could say consider myself a ball knower. You are, but when you look at Baker Mayfield, what do you think is wrong with him right now? Is this just injury or is this something else?
I think it's a lot of things. I think it's injury. I think it's the injuries to all his wide receivers. I think it was foreseeable. Actually, that's the part that no one tells you, because remember, we were already projecting him for regression from last year, given that he had a career high in fantasy points per game and an absurd, what was it in 2024? A 7.2% touchdown rate. It was just not going to be replicable when his career average was 5. And right now he's at a 4.8% touchdown rate. It's usually one of the first stats I look at for every quarterback when I start writing up quarterbacks in the offseason. And so I think this is just the long-winded way of saying we knew it was going to happen. We didn't know how. And although we started hot at the beginning of the year, clearly, like, it's all fallen back now to where the last year and a half, we're seeing the regression happen.
Moving on to the backfield for Tampa, Bucky Irving has come back. These last 2 games, 17 carries, 61 yards, 15 carries, 55 yards. He has finished as a top 15 running back in his first 2 weeks back. We have seen Rachaad White have his moments this year. We've seen Sean Tucker have his moments this year. After what you've seen at these last 2 weeks, is he officially back to bell cow status? Is he capital letter Bucky Irving from what we saw in 2024?
I don't know if he's bell cow, but he's a top 24 permanently running back the rest of the way. Even ran more White routes than Rachaad White this last week against the Saints. So I have all the confidence in the world in Bucky Irving, and I'm very excited if I roster him in the fantasy playoffs. I know it took a while to get there. I questioned a lot of times, is this photo AI or is he actually practicing? Still wasn't sure, but we're here now. And even to come back, I know we're 2 weeks removed from it. Last week was more of a timeshare with Tucker and Rachaad White more involved, but I just ignore it given that he came back from injury and then out-touched Rachaad White. I think it was 19-5, just significantly. So I think we got a cemented top 24 back in our lives.
I think that here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to the questions from another one from Fly Nelly Fly, who also asked. This is our second Colts receiver versus Tampa receiver tonight, John. But this time it's Alec Pierce and it's Mike Evans. We know that Mike Evans is I have him in 2 leagues and he is comfortably on both benches. I just don't trust his volume tonight. I don't trust how many snaps he's going to be out there for. And I'm damn sure I don't trust how many routes he's going to be targeted on. So I am definitely sitting Evans. However, if you are putting Evans versus Alec Pierce with potentially Phillip Rivers, it makes it much more interesting is the wrong word, but frustrating here. And that's what Fly Nelly Fly is facing here. Alec Pierce versus Mike Evans. Who's the right start in week 15? The sigh from John Daigle tells it all. We
got 2 minutes to answer. I think it's Alec Pierce. Again, I just don't know. And historically, not Bucky Irving, but Chris Godwin, they brought him back slowly from injury. I think I'm worried about Mike Evans personally.
And this is coming from a guy who is not as down. I mean, I'm down on Phillip Rivers, but I don't think I'm as down as John is. But I would be playing Pierce over Evans tonight.
Yeah.
Now the other thing that I have to mention here, Jalen McMillan is active tonight. How much is he going to gum up the works for guys like Egbuka, Godwin, and quite frankly, Mike Evans? No Cade Otton tonight, by the way, as well.
I think it's way too early for McMillan to even consider anything. And remember, at this time last year, he literally won.
Hold on. Maybe I asked this the wrong way. I'm not saying start McMillan, but for like Godwin or Egbuka, are you saying that he has no impact on these guys?
I don't think so right now. The initial reports, this is a long time ago, but the initial reports were even that he could miss the entire year. Seems like they're just getting everyone back healthy for this little run towards the end of the season. It's a short turnaround. I don't think Evans and McMillan are involved much tonight. I think it's more about the 10 days of recovery they're going to get going into next week.
Last question, less than a minute to answer. How strong of a play is the Buccaneers defense tonight against Kirk Cousins and the Falcons?
It's relative to what else you have, but yeah, it's fine. You can play them. Okay. It's the time of the year where everyone asks questions about, do I start the defense 9 or the defense 10 on the week? And it's like, well, we we don't have infinite time. And even if we did, we wouldn't get these marginal points right. So yeah, you got a good streaming defense. Just take it at that.
Do you think, and by the way, Ian Rappaport reported this roughly 20 minutes ago, maybe 25 minutes ago, that Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, is going to evaluate the football ops at the end of the year, including Raheem Morris, who's the head coach, including Terry Fontenot, who's the GM as well. They're 4-9 right now. For people who are counting on Drake London for the rest of the season, how realistic is it that he just gets shut down for the rest of the year here, John?
Yeah, it's realistic. I don't think it's going to happen, but given that he's not practicing at all, it's certainly a possibility. I don't think if we get DMPs again with 10 days to rest after this, if we get more DMPs on Monday next week, that's when we start getting really concerned that he's just done. Same thing we're asking about Jayden Daniels, for example. Don't think he's shut down yet, but it's absolutely a possibility, if not probable.
Couple other things here. Let me transition with this way. Who do you think is more likely? Well, no, let's do it this way. Who do you think is more likely to play again this season? Drake London or Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson
didn't go on IR, right?
It has not.
Yeah, I think there's a chance he comes in.
The big contention with him is like this Brady Cook stuff. It's like, why are you bringing Wilson back if you're having your third string quarterback out there?
That's true. The coaches are still, I don't think they're evaluating Brady Cook.
No.
Yeah, I don't know, because like Breece Hall's not going to be on the Jets next year either, so I don't know what they're doing, to be honest. And to be fair, they're playing like they don't know what they're doing.
Where do you hope Hall ends up? Like Kansas City or something else? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I hope it's a good offense like that for sure. I have no idea at this time of the year, week 15. Like I know the wide receiver free agent class is a really good one, but Breece Hall, like those guys are getting dealt. I was asked in the ETR Discord earlier this week, like who are some players that if they were dropped, for example, you would pick up if we have keepers. Braylon Allen was one of them just because Breece Hall is going to get dealt.
Yeah.
Ricky Pearsall was one. If in a season-long league, there's a chance he was dropped. And Juwan Jennings and Brandon Ayuk aren't going to be back with the Niners next year. So that's a pretty easy, obvious buy. Same for Luther Burden because DJ Moore definitely won't be back next year. So it's the time of the year where people are looking at options like that.
It's going to be fun. I mean, like, I feel like for many of us, like you do too, but we have teams in the fantasy playoffs. We have teams competing for huge prizes, but they're still like this time of year, man. It's just we got one eye into the offseason and what's going to be coming up next year. We are off and running in Tampa tonight. Zane Gonzalez has kicked it off to get things underway. We have a return by Tampa out to the 34. It is a 1st and 10 for Tampa, and they hand it off to Bucky Irving, who promptly gets a first down on 11-yard carry, and then it's a Bucky Irving catch for 11 yards as well. So Irving off to, as you just said, John, back to a locked-in top 24 status, and maybe a big night incoming here for him as we begin your two-screen experience with the Buccaneers and Falcons. Mike Evans, by the way, out there on the first play of the game. Mm-hmm. I want to bring Davante Adams up here. I think this is worth talking about considering how many points Vegas has in being scored in this Rams-Lions game. Davante Adams last week did not practice on Wednesday. He practiced Thursday. He's dealing with a hamstring issue. Today, he did not practice at all. And this is, a soft tissue injury, 4 catches for 29 yards last week. So it's not like he crushed it last week. And I'm kind of worried about him at this point. Obviously, if he gets into practice tomorrow, I feel pretty good about it. But at this point right now, John, what's your level of concern about Davante Adams being available for this Lions game on Sunday?
No concern just yet. I think we're just at the time of the year where a lot of guys get Wednesday is off. And more importantly, the veterans don't need a practice because these are teams that have eyes towards more it's games over the last month. Because remember, the NFL purposely stacks the last month with more division games to make players play more as opposed to being shut down because these games matter. So it's just that time of the year where everyone's going to freak out about Wednesday and Thursday practice reports. I would not, especially for veterans.
Okay. And that makes perfect sense. I don't think I've ever freaked out about a Wednesday practice report.
Some people, because, it's the playoffs. I get it. Everyone's hyper-focused right now on every little decision. And Woody Marks got Wednesday off, but Woody Marks also had 26 touches last week. Let's give the kid a day off. It's okay. No, we should never worry about those situations.
It's an incomplete pass for Mike Evans, a no gain for Bucky Irving on a right tackle run, and then an incomplete pass to Emeka Egbuka. 4th and 10 now for the Buccaneers at the Falcons 44. We are waiting with bated breath to see what they do here. 12:46 left in the first quarter. The Saints backfield is what I want to touch on real briefly before we take a break. Devin, Neal limited in today's practice. No practice for Alvin Kamara. I want to get your thoughts on how strong of a play Devin Neal is and how what his volume looks like, not only this week, the rest of the season as well. And then what you think New Orleans is going to do next year, not only with Devin Neal coming back, they have a decision to make about Alvin Kamara, and they have Kendra Miller, who will no longer be on IR at the start of next season as well.
Devin Neal is going as long as Alvin Kamara remains out. That's also someone I don't think we see again this year. Pretty sure they're just over it. Devin Neal is someone who's going to get every single touch. And so that's a guy that, you hold your nose and just put into your lineup, understanding he's going to get every carry. Not sure if he'll do well. The Rams are a different unit, but even they, just got there with both running backs, Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, over 70 yards and a touchdown. You look back to what Panthers have given up beyond that. Even this last game, Kamara had 83 rushing yards, 110 yards from scrimmage. So it's a matchup I'm pretty confident in for Devin Neal. Not only that, because Tyler Shough is proving. Tyler Shough, who didn't run at all, he was a statue. He was a sloth in college. And now he has 6 carries in 3 consecutive games out of nowhere. The Panthers are also generating pressure at the league's lowest rate. That game could also be sneaky fun just because I'm expecting the Saints to put up points.
Loaded question for you. Percentage chance Tyler Shough is the starting quarterback week 1 of 2026 for the New Orleans Saints?
No.
0?
5.
Oh,
5. I'll give it 5 just because their draft pick is so high. They're going to take a quarterback. Now it's a wide open quarterback class with no strong traits. Everyone's a project, but Kellen Moore has actually done all the right things. It's like Liam Cohen. I know the results aren't showing themselves, at least for the Saints, but the Saints, remember also their roster was bereft of talent from the beginning of the year. They literally came into the year basically waiting to pick Arch Manning. And then Arch Manning even showed he's a project. But Kellen Moore and Liam Cohen have done an outstanding job this season all year long. It's more their players and their roster that have failed them more so than the coaching.
Kind of interested to see what happens with the Jaguars in the playoffs as well, if they go, which I think they will, to see what they can do against some of the heavies in the AFC. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. This game has been fun to watch so far. Riley Dixon gets a punt downed by the Buccaneers at the 1-yard line. Kirk Cousins and the Falcons will take over. 12:33 to go in the first quarter. They have gone to a break on Prime Video. We are going to go to a break right now. Trust us. We'll be back before they are. FFPC Weekly Challenge is still live for Sunday. MyFFPC.com went up to $2,500. No draft, no salary cap. Pick your players right now and get in line in those 10, 30, and 100-team contests. He's John Daigle from Established to Run. I'm Eric Balkman from the FFPC, the Road of His High Stakes Lowdown, and, of course, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. We're answering many more of your starter sit questions next, including, but not limited to, RJ Harvey, AJ Barner, Mark Andrews, Patrick Mahomes, and many more. Don't go anywhere. The Better Sports Network returns right after this.
Folks, let me talk to you about my favorite weekly platform to play on. We all play Dynasty and we all play Redraft, but we got to find some place to play weekly. And the FFPC Weekly Challenge is my favorite. If you're like me and you're tired of the constraints of salary caps or having to do a draft to make a team, or even having to play against these people that are stacking up the same team, stacking up certain games, and you feel like you have to put in 1 million entries or have to have those certain stacks to win, then come play over at FFPC. Really, the only main rule that you have to deal with is that you cannot select multiple players from the same team. I'm going out and I'm trying to find the best of the best of the best players and put them into a lineup. And that's what you can do over at MyFFPC. You can go out and you can take the number 1 running back in Bijan Robinson, and you can also have Saquon Barkley. As long as they're not in the same team, you can put them all into a lineup, right? And there's 4 flexes for this, so there's a lot of flexibility. There's 2 different contests, one that has kickers and defenses, one that's just position players. Then you also have a bunch of different price points you can play at: $35, $100, or $200 buy-in. And you're going out and you're just picking the absolute chalk plays, maybe sneaking in a little bit of a sleeper there, somebody that you think can really blow up that week. And that's how it works. It's one of the best contests out there for the sharpest gamers. And when you win on the FFPC, people take notice. That is where the best high stakes games are. That's where the best experts play. And that's where I play, because I want to be an FFPC champion and put that title on me, put the money in my pocket, and put that in my bio. FFPC champion. And the FFPC weekly contest is the best place to play during the season.
The FFPC Weekly Challenge is live right now for Sunday. Lineups will lock at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. No draft, no salary cap. Pick your 10 or 12 players if you want to play with kickers and defenses. Win up to $2,500, 10, 30, and 100-team contests. One player per NFL team. So if you want DeAndre Swift, you may not have Rome Odunze. If you would like Omarion Hampton, you cannot have Ladd McConkey. One player per NFL team. myffpc.com is where to go for that. He is John Daigle. He is my guest co-host tonight on the FFPC Insider Access Show right here on the Better Sports Network. Follow him on the X at @NotJDaigle. And everything that you have going on with Establish the Run. I mean, you're doing this stuff year round. Is this the most taxing part of the season for you right now, John? When does it let up and when is it crescendo for you?
No, I'd say it actually lets up around this time of year, just because I put out basically a stash rankings for weeks 15 through 17 for the playoffs, because that's what people care about. They want the right defense, the right streamers, which is fine. It's hard to get actually accurate rankings a week ahead because so much changes this time of the year. But I put it out in their best case scenarios, so much so that and let's say for week 16, for example, I have Jalen Wright ranked over Kenneth Gainwell on the early waiver wire rankings, because the Dolphins get the Bengals, the Steelers get the Lions, I believe. Thus, in their best case scenarios, if Jalen Warren was out and Devon Achane were out, we would rather have Jalen Wright, based on what we saw last time when Achane left and Wright was the direct backup over Ollie Gordon, who basically wasn't a factor at all. So I put it out in advance for everyone just so they can optimize their benches. And then once that's set, I'll still tack on waiver wires and shows. But beyond that, it's just matchups, and I can get those done, by Thursday evening. So this is the time of the year where, I may open up a video game or two as opposed to the last 3 months of my life.
What's the off season like for you? I mean, you're still churning out content, right?
Yeah, I usually purposely, after the Super Bowl, I take 2 weeks off and be a vegetable. I'll purposely get into bad habits. Won't go to the gym. I'll eat everything. I'll stay up till 5 a.m. I have no wife and kids, so I just get to be a college kid again, basically. But I'll do that on purpose to let it all out. And then I'll go back to my good habits and early gym and whatnot when I get back into a work mode. But I make sure to get it all out. Whereas a lot of people dive straight into best ball. And I love FFPC. I love best ball. I support it all. But the grind of the season, I've learned, since it's a 365-day thing, I do like to take those 2 or 3 weeks off and do absolutely nothing. Don't even tweet once. Just disappear from the world.
See, you say you don't even tweet. I think this would be fantastic content to document the 2 weeks where John Daigle turns into a 20-year-old college kid vegging out on junk food, video games, and utilizing poor sleeping habits. People would love this, John. I'm just saying. If you ever want to do something.
Unfortunately, you're not wrong.
The Falcons have taken the ball over. They're actually moving it right now. First down from the 1 yard line.
And remember what I said about Jamel Dean, how the last 2 years the Bucs dropped to literally dead last in yards per attempt, and he just left with a shoulder injury, it looks like, when he tried to tackle Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. So let's be on the lookout now for the Bucs against the Bucs secondary, because if they start allowing big chunk gains through the air, we know why.
I was wrong. The ball was down at the 6 yard line, so not at the 1 yard line. Bijan Robinson picks up a yard on first down. Then he picks up 10 yards. A Kyle Pitts for 13 yards on a catch from Kirk Cousins. Bijan Robinson for 4 yards. And then a Kirk Cousins pass to Robinson for 9 yards. We have Alan Algier sighting. He gets a 3-yard carry. And then back to Bijan Robinson for a 5-yard carry. All of a sudden, the Falcons are at midfield at the Tampa 49, 3rd and 2. We'll see what they do here as we move into some starter sits here. I've tried to craft these questions the best I can based on teams who are in the FFPC Big Gorilla, the FFPC Main Event Championship round. They might be facing lineup decisions like this. So we'll kick it off with kind of a heavy-hitting one that we don't normally talk about a whole lot on this show, and that is RJ Harvey. versus Trevion Henderson. Harvey is at home against the Packers. Trevion Henderson at home against the Bills. I think both these guys are startable this week. But, John, in this scenario, if you can only play one, which one do you like better?
It's a tough one, but I think I'm going to trust RJ Harvey more. It's one game, and we've done this so many times with Sean Payton's skill players this year, where we've gotten the rug pulled out from us on their usage. But just the fact that we got 70% of backfield touches, and he even ran Harvey 26 routes to Tyler Baday's 4. It's like an elite running back usage that we got in their last game. So I'm going to take that. I think it's not a bad spot against the Packers. Like I said, a sneaky shootout. And so I like Harvey better.
Yeah, I would lean Harvey as well. You know, the catches that he got last week gives me a lot more confidence in him. Yep. And I'm definitely playing him in more lineups than I'm sitting him for sure. On to Rico Dowdle versus Aaron Jones. I think we touched on more Dowdle than Aaron Jones this week, but I still think it's worth bringing up here between these two players because the aforementioned my 12-year-old son's fantasy football team, we have to make this decision at flex this week. When you consider Aaron Jones going up against the Dallas Cowboys, knowing that the Cowboys rush defense has been pretty good, but Aaron Jones does have his bread buttered quite a bit in the passing game as well versus Rico Dowdle, who gets a pretty choice matchup in the Big Easy against the Saints. Let's say you can only have one of these guys in your lineup. John, who are you starting? Who are you sitting?
I think it's going to be Rico Dowdle for me, understanding the range of outcomes, because the Panthers' backfield has, unfortunately for everyone, become a hot hand situation. But Rico Dowdle could also very easily be that hot hand. And it's just a matchup against the Saints that I want to take advantage of. So I think personally I would play Dowdle. Again, these are really tough questions. We're nitpicking. And based on who you ask, the answer could be different.
That's true. How do you fall in on this as far as like, there's been a lot of pundits who have said that this is Hubbard's backfield again in Carolina, that Dowdle is going to go back to where he started the year. There's been plenty of people that say that we're being a little bit too forward on saying that right now. It still might be Dowdle. And then there's other people saying like, no, we're back to an even split. How does John Daigle feel about the Panthers backfield right now?
I don't even think it's a split. I think it starts as a split, and whoever's the better player is going to lead the team in touches every week, which is unpredictable and not what anyone wants to hear. But when I start weighing that versus what I'd rather have start Aaron Jones, I'm going to take my chances that hopefully Dowdle's the better running back in this game. Okay,
so you are of the opinion that nobody can, with conviction, say right now, with any kind of prescient predictability, that it's going to be Dowdle or it's going to be Hubbard. It could be either one of these guys, and it's a coin.
I definitely believe so, because last game Chuba Hubbard was the hot hand. That's why he got more touches. I think like he may start the game because he earned it from the last game before their bye, but it could easily be Rico Dowdle who leads them in touches. So yeah, I'll take my chance on Dowdle. It's not like Seattle's backfield. That's truly, I know everyone's trying to make Ken Walker a thing all year long. It's never going to happen. It's truly a timeshare between Charbonnet and Ken Walker. I think the Panthers just are going to lean into whoever's better that day.
So then, as far as comparing that Panthers backfield to the Seahawks, this is a total coin flip between these four players. Like on any given week, like you are going with God or whatever. If you are starting Charbonnet over Walker or
ask anyone who starts Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet every week. It's hell. It's like literally the worst situation possible. Nobody wants those guys, but we have to start them because we were stupid and drafted them. I don't have any Kenneth Walker, by the way, none, because my strategy all offseason was stop drafting. Unfortunately, I missed out on James Cook because of this, but I basically stopped after Omarion Hampton, which got me no James Cook, but also made sure I did not draft the Chuba Hubbards, Ken Walkers, Aaron Jones. The list goes on. And then I picked back up at Jordan Mason, Jaylen Warren, started taking guys around there just to make sure I blocked all the veteran timeshare running backs out of my lineups entirely. Instead, for the wide receivers that are now winning our leagues, like JSN, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans, Juwan Jennings, George Pickens, Devontae Adams, list goes on. That's the way I drafted this year. But having said that, I ended up with a lot of like Zach Charbonnet and whatnot. And because of that, then I do start them and it sucks. It's the worst thing ever.
I remember back in Pros versus Joe, FFPC Pros versus Joe's in July. And I think this was right after something happened. I can't remember exactly what it was. You might remember better than me, but something happened with Najee Harris. And I don't know if this is right. Like, we knew about the fireworks thing.
Oh, yeah. It was the fireworks thing. Yeah.
But something, it took a turn for the worse or something. Cause this was like several weeks after, maybe not several, but definitely 2 or 3 weeks after the fireworks accident. And I remember you had a top 3 pick and you took Hampton coming back.
Yep.
In the second round. And I wonder if he wouldn't have hurt his foot, how good Hampton could have been this year.
He was, when Najee Harris went down, he was, Hampton literally got every single running back touch the next couple of games. Kamani Vidal wasn't a factor at all. And then only when Hampton went down did Vidal become a factor. So Hampton, had he stayed healthy, was going to be like a Saquon Barkley. He's going to be a 90% touch player.
What do you think the Chargers do in the offseason? I mean, do they bring in because obviously Harris is probably done there, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. And they may
now you have this first round pick in Hampton. And I wonder, okay, this is year 2. Let's utilize the hell out of this guy. And I wonder if this guy is I mean, my question more so is does this guy sneak up into the second half of first rounds next year, or is he still going to be relegated? Because we're going to, like you said, you're going to be vegging out, watching Netflix and eating pizza on the couch, but we'll be drafting Omari and Hampton here in January.
Yeah.
Where do you think Hampton goes or should go?
It's probably second round, second, third round turn again, I would think. I guess it just depends how we evaluate their offseason. But they don't need wide receivers. They're set there. They don't need a quarterback. They don't need an offensive line. They even traded for Trevor Penning, so he can maybe be a factor next offseason as well as a rotational tackle. They're just very stout, and they do Chargers things where they'll never stay healthy because they're cursed for some reason. But they're a very good team when they're at full strength. So I don't know what else they need to add, quite honestly. Hampton, if he does creep into the first, second round turn, it wouldn't be shocking. But I guess at that point, he'd be competing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, Drake London, Nico Collins at that time. So I could see him getting there.
I have to update the game here just real quick. So what we saw when we last left you, it was a 3rd and 2. There was a false start on Atlanta, and Cousins hits a David Sills for a 4-yard pass. Obviously wasn't enough for a first down. There is a punt. Fair catch, and it is 1st down and 10 for Tampa. Mike Evans gets an incomplete pass on 1st down. Bucky Irving a 7-yard rush on 2nd down, and then Baker Mayfield is sacked. However, there was defensive holding on Atlanta. Automatic 1st down. Now 1st and 10 from their own 29. Do the Buccaneers have it? 5.5 minutes to go in the first quarter. Okay, getting back to the running back situation. Last running back I'm going to ask you about tonight, or running back decision. Bam Knight, who we talked about earlier, or Kyle Monangai, who's sort of been like the 1B, sometimes the 1A in that Chicago backfield. You know the Bears, John. Would you play Monangai over Bam Knight this week?
Really tough, but I do trust Ben Johnson more than I trust the Cardinals against the Texans. That's pretty much what it comes down to where even their run schemes are so creative. Go back and watch that Eagles game on Black Friday where that wasn't even DeAndre Swift, Jalen Carter, Kyle Monangai. That was Ben Johnson's stats, getting both his running backs over 100 yards. First time the Bears did that since the 1985 Super Bowl season, by the way, with 200-yard rushers. So, yeah, I think I'll take Monangai just for the scheme since we're nitpicking.
We are nitpicking here a little bit, and I think I'm with you on this on Monangai. There's one.
By the way, I don't know if you've seen the weather, but it's going to be -20 wind chill in that Bears game in Chicago on Sunday
against Cleveland.
-20 wind chill.
Interesting.
I'll be playing. No, I have a soccer game, indoor game, of course, Sunday morning. And then I'll probably stick around the field and watch the first slate of games where I have to come back and take notes. But I don't want to step outside at all.
Yeah. How do you play indoor soccer on a Sunday morning when all this stuff is going on for
we play early, and I bring my laptop to the bar or the field that then becomes the bar after the game.
You know what's funny about that is I played soccer in high school, and then after that I played indoor soccer, and then until then my friends eventually gave it up. I just don't have people to play with anymore. Not that I'm in shape to play with anymore. I will say this, and feel free to disagree with me. Indoor soccer was some of the best workouts I've ever gotten in my entire life. Going up in where there's just nothing. There's no outs. The ball stays in play pretty much the entire time. You are constantly running and cutting. Oh, the cutting. My God, how many times did I blow out the sides of my flats playing indoor soccer? And it was so much fun. I can't do it anymore because I don't have any friends to play it with. And the fact that you get to play it on a Sunday morning and then flip open your laptop, start working with a cocktail. That's a little slice of heaven right there, John.
Yeah, we play in a competitive league. That's something like I'm never giving up. Actually, like I'm going to play. We have a 10 p.m. game tonight. I usually play 2 or 3 times per week. I'm never giving it up. I played throughout high school. I played 1 year in college, small college. I'm goalie. And so like the thing is like it's hard on my body because I'm diving on turf and like it like beats your shoulders up bad. But I go to PT twice a week just because I also run, long distances. We've talked about that in the past. I have a 30 miler. My first one of the season is in April. So like I'm in training season already. So it's no big deal.
Goalie too. I would never want to do that with indoor because
I love it. I love it so much.
Constantly have those balls bouncing right off the sides. Yeah. Like you gotta be a cat, man. When it comes,
you're on your toes. Like it's mental fatigue because like anyone can just like even off the ball comes off the wall, they can just punt it toward the goal. So I have to always be ready at all times. So it's just like 25 minutes of mentally locking in. You take a little halftime break, and then you get ready to mentally lock in again. Then you grab a picture with your teammates. It's the best.
If you ever wondered why John Daigle is so sharp as far as fantasy football goes, he's doing it on the field. That's how he's sharp.
I do have to be the captain of the field, because I'm the one that sees everything. So lots of shouting, lots of calling out offensive schemes, even at goalie.
We have a Rachaad White 20-yard gain on first down, and then a Mike Evans catch for 12 yards, an incomplete pass deep to Emeka Egbuka, and then a Baker Mayfield sack. So right now we are looking at 3rd and 15 from the Falcons 43 for Tampa. It is 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. Okay, getting back to it. Let's go wide receivers this week. Ladd McConkey, who failed to top 6 fantasy points last week, or DK Metcalf, who had to spend the extra night in Baltimore for some abdominal injury, but it looks like he's going to be good to go. And it's a Monday night game too, so we wanted some clarity on that. We're getting clarity. But Metcalf versus McConkey here, John. Which one is the better start in Week 15?
McConkey. I can't trust Metcalf at all. And I know you're probably starting him in FFPC, but the fact that that's the first game in 5 weeks that he popped up for more than single-digit points, and it came against the Ravens defense that, as we talked about, even in being healthy, they're still giving it up to wide receiver ones. I can't trust Metcalf at all.
One of the things that I was concerned about with this Metcalf signing in Pittsburgh, and I think I don't know, feel free to disagree with me. I think it's starting to rear its head. Metcalf not being the most precise route runner in the world. And then Aaron Rodgers throwing to him, who requires precise, you have to be at this spot at this time or whatever. And even Metcalf's athleticism and catch radius can only save him from so much. But I think that's part of the reason that we're seeing such inconsistent inconsistent production from Metcalf here. This is kind of what I was worried about. And for the most part in this season, Metcalf has been able to overcome that. Rodgers and him have been able to overcome it. Last month and a half, it's not been great here. And I think that's part of the reason why we can't trust him.
I agree. I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with the Steelers, but it's also always the same things wrong with the Steelers in that they are perpetually a 500 team. Mike Tomlin is as much of an issue as he is something good that's happening there, because he's too good of a coach. But also because of that, they never rebuild, and so they're just stuck in purgatory, and they're a team that we never have to take seriously because they'll just never win under Mike Tomlin. They will always go for some bad veteran quarterback. They never address quarterback in the offseason, the most important part of football, and so all their flaws are always on them. It's their fault as an organization, but this is what we've become accustomed to under Mike Tomlin.
What's the percentage chance Kyler Murray is a Steeler next year?
There's no way. No, Mike Tomlin's not having a guy of his character. No, those issues, zero chance. No, you got to be stern. You got to be a strong-minded veteran in order for Tomlin to trust you.
Okay.
Or Mason Rudolph.
Or Mason Rudolph. Yeah.
Always Mason Rudolph somehow.
One of the most mentally tough backup quarterbacks we have seen.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Anyway, wide receiver here next, Khalil Shakir versus Brian Thomas. Khalil Shakir this week taking on the New England Patriots. Brian Thomas at home against the Jets. Can't believe I'm asking this question here in week 15, but given how the seasons have gone for both of these players, it's a viable question, John.
I would lean towards Brian Thomas, just given the matchup against the Jets. I think, again, without Sauce Gardner, their secondary, their defense in general is really falling apart. Trevor Lawrence also, he hasn't been good, but he's constantly putting up fantasy points every single week. I think he has 5 consecutive games with top 12 finishes. And so I'll ride it. I know it's not pretty. And maybe it's still that I just can't get over the fact that Brian Thomas had such a crazy sophomore fall from grace that I still view him as the guy I saw in the last month of last season. But I think I'll still start Thomas.
I'm gonna go Shakir here, but I'm gonna couch this by saying this. If you feel like the FFPC main event, championship round, Big Gorilla championship round it gets underway this week. If you feel like you are way down there, like you're in 400th, 500th, 800th place or whatever, and you need to make a move because this is going to be a 3-week process for you to get back up there, then I can totally see the upside with Brian Thomas because I don't think Khalil Shakir is going to light you up with, 9 catches for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns. And I don't think Brian Thomas does either, but I think the ceiling is higher for him, the floor much higher for Shakir. Bearing in mind that, and I think Darren Armani from Fantasy Mojo posted this a couple of weeks ago, that the teams that won the $1 million in the main event and the Big Gorilla last year started off the championship round between 400th and 500th place in the main event. I think between 800th and 900th place in the Big Gorilla. So a lot of stuff can happen here, and you can make it happen if you are successful enough in making the right calls in week 15. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have made a right call here. This is insane stuff. So 3rd and 15 from the Falcons 43. Baker Mayfield hits Emeka Egbuka for a 23-yard pass, and then he hits Jalen McMillan for a 20-yard catch. Initially they ruled him down, but it was reversed. Now they're calling it I believe they're calling it a touchdown for the Buccaneers. Or am I wrong? John, do you have this up right now? Now I'm confused.
Nope, they reversed it. It is actually
a touchdown, and now it's going to be 1st and goal at the 1. He's
down at the 1, and at least, unfortunately, I'm shaking my head because Sean Tucker's the goal line back in right now over Bucky Irving. So I'm really upset right now.
Yeah, it's really annoying. This is tilting. Obviously, you don't want to see it, but we'll see what Tampa does here. Remember, no Cade Otton out there who's inactive tonight, so we'll see if they give it to Tucker. We'll see what they do here on 1st down. And actually, on 1st down, they do throw a pass. It's incomplete to Mike Evans, so now 2nd and goal from the 1. And we'll give you updates on that. One more wide receiver question. These guys are playing each other this week, John. We've touched on this game throughout our broadcast tonight. Who would you rather play, Courtland Sutton against Green Bay or Christian Watson, obviously on the road in Denver?
Yeah,
I your love for Christian Watson before.
I don't know how you bench Christian Watson. Like he's literally a walking top 24 wide receiver. He's one of the most trustworthy wide receivers in all of fantasy right now. So, like I would still start Christian Watson over Ted McMillan, for example. I think I would start Christian Watson over. Would I start him over Michael Wilson? I think I would. I just don't know I don't know why you would bench Christian Watson against any matchup right now.
Okay. I'm going to throw this at you right now. And this is one of my leagues where I have Christian Watson in, and I currently have him on the bench, but maybe you can sell me on it. Okay. Here it is. Oh, okay. No. Okay. Jackson Smith-Njigba, you're playing over Watson, right?
Yeah. You play JSN over everyone but Puka, but you don't have to make that choice ever.
I'm just going through all my receivers on this team.
Yeah.
Emeka Egbuka, and it is a Sean Tucker touchdown, by the way, for 1 yard, which is really frustrating. Would you have played Egbuka over Christian Watson?
No.
You would have played Watson over Egbuka?
Yeah, I would play Watson over Egbuka.
Okay. I can still fix this then. Christian Watson against Denver or Jalen Waddle at Pittsburgh Monday night?
I think if that's the case, it's probably Waddle.
You're playing Waddle there, but you would play. But
that's the range though. We're talking about what, like wide receiver 17 or 18 on the week. Yeah, they're roughly, both solid.
And you're playing, you just said Watson over Sutton, right?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. All right.
And
perfect.
that's understanding that Pat Bryant's out. We're going to thin out the target tree. It's
Yep.
going back to Troy Franklin and Courtland Sutton. But I think I still trust Watson more. I like the, again, no one else does. That's okay. I like the Packers offense. I think they're fine.
I think they're fine too. It's just it's more of a best ball offense for me. That's been the frustrating thing.
Sure.
Now you make the case with Watson. Yeah, over the last over the last month, he's been awesome. He's been really, really good. Since basically since he's come back from injury. And maybe that's the thing that we just ride the hot hand here. Like until Jayden Reed or Romeo Doubs or somebody gives us a reason to sit Christian Watson, maybe we just keep playing Watson.
Yeah, because Matthew Golden's not a thing. Like he's not going to ever earn targets or play. So, or at least this year. So yeah, it's only Christian Watson, Jayden Reed sprinkled in. Romeo Doubs is running routes, but Watson has proved already that he's the wide receiver one. And he picked up from a year and a half ago before he got injured the last time that like, this is the guy when at full strength, he is a wide receiver one. He's just never been at full strength.
He has made some plays when Love has given him the opportunity to make a 50-50 catch or make a play he did. And I'll tell you, and I don't know, maybe this is wrong, but the play that sticks in my mind, I think it was against Detroit on Thanksgiving. He ran an out. It was just a simple like 8 or 9 yard route that went to the sideline on like a 3rd and 6 or a 2nd and 6 or something like that. Easily got the first down, but I don't know, man. He just reached out and just plucked the ball out of the air, and he made it seem so effortless. I'm like, God, that's what a number one wide receiver does. And it was such an innocuous play. Like you'd never think anything of it. But the way he ran that play, it's given me a lot of confidence in him going forward here. Okay, tight ends are next on the docket as I end my Christian Watson poem here tonight. Mark Andrews or Theo Johnson. If you are faced with this decision this week, Mark Andrews going up against the hapless Cincinnati Bengals. Theo Johnson not far behind in the matchup category as he's going up against Washington. If you can only play one, John, who's it going to be?
If it were any other matchup with the Bengals, I would say Theo Johnson, but Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, they're going in my lineups this week. Last three, all season long, the Bengals are allowing the most yards per game to tight ends, but the last 3 games in particular, Hunter Henry out of nowhere for 110 yards. Mm-hmm. Then we had the Ravens tight ends on Thanksgiving, Isaiah Likely included, over 90 yards. And then last week's combination of Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. So yeah, let's just go right back to Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely in the best spot possible.
It's hard to argue against that for sure. So I'm playing Mark Andrews everywhere. A big play from Kyle Pitts on first down from the 35. It is a 26-yard catch followed up by a offensive holding penalty on the Falcons. So it will now be 1st and 20 from the Tampa Bay 49, I believe. No, Tampa Bay 39. No, Tampa Bay 49. Excuse me. Tampa Bay 49. It's going to be 1st and 20. 28 seconds to go in the first quarter. That might be the final play of the first quarter. I'll get you more on that. Dalton Schultz or Darren Waller is another decision facing FFPC owners this week in the championship round. You have Schultz at home against the Arizona Cardinals. You have Darren Waller, who I actually added shortly before he came back from IR in a bunch of leagues. Darren Waller this week is against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football, John. 2 kind of unheralded tight ends, and we need to take a closer look at this right here if we are facing a lineup decision between these 2.
And CJ Stroud's pretty much best performances all year long were predictable because they came against defenses who just lost so many pieces on injury due to injuries, the 49ers included. And that's kind of what this spot is because the Cardinals last month have just fallen apart completely. Baker Mayfield didn't get there. Like he rushed for 27 yards and had 14 fantasy points. But beyond that, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford all threw for 3 touchdowns against them. So I think it's a really soft spot for CJ Stroud and the Texans passing game here. So I'll take Dalton Schultz this week and then Darren Waller against the Bengals next week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that and I think that's the way I would handle it as well. I think that's Schultz is the much better play this week versus Waller. It is now the end of the first quarter on Thursday Night Football. It ends on a Bijan Robinson 8-yard carry. So when we resume in the second quarter, they've gone to a break on Prime Video. We are still going here. It will be 2nd and 12 for the Falcons at the Tampa 41. Kirk Cousins has yet to throw an incompletion. We have Bijan Robinson with 28 rushing yards, beg your pardon. And then Kyle Pitts, 2 catches for 39 yards. Those are your highlights for the first quarter here tonight. One final tight end question. And I'm really holding you over the coals on this based on what you said with Oronde Gadsden before. He's at Kansas City this week. You said you cannot play this guy. He needs to be on your bench. In no world can you play Oronde Gadsden. Well, what if the world you're living in is him or A.J. Barner against the Colts? Would you be playing Barner over Gadsden this week, Mr. Daigle?
I would, especially with Elijah Arroyo banged up. A.J. Barner's route participation didn't change at all, but it's still a really good, it's still a much better matchup for him against the Colts as opposed to Gadsden this week. I think that one's actually pretty easy. Like I'm talking about, like I have in a league Gadsden or Terrence Ferguson because I picked wrong. I picked Terrence Ferguson over Colby Parkinson a month ago. And I'm so upset at myself. And if that's the case, I'm going to start Gadsden. But, you know, when we're talking about Barner being a fringe tight end one for his on-field participation, I'm going to take that from better quarterback play right now.
We move on to the quarterbacks here. We touched on Jared Goff earlier. Normally, if this dude is indoors, I'm always playing him, no matter the opposing player. But when you consider that he is on the road indoors against the Rams, a tough matchup this week, and if the other quarterback I'm putting in this scenario is Trevor Lawrence against the Jets, would you play Goff over Lawrence, or would you go the other way, John?
It's one of those situations where you have to ask your own risk tolerance because Trevor Lawrence, the projections and the rankings will probably have him higher, and that makes sense. He's going to get there probably as a low-end fringe QB1. But I'm gonna take on the risk, and I'm gonna play Jared Goff just because, again, I think that game shoots out entirely. Vegas thinks that it's a game where could go either direction. Range of outcomes is wide for Jared Goff. He could be a dud entirely, but I don't think Dan Campbell will allow that to happen. If anything, I think we're going to get a lot of garbage time and get there. So I like Jared Goff over Lawrence this week.
Okay. All right. I can get on board with that for sure. B-Ball Diva 85 on X right now in the FFPC main event championship round. Drake May or Brock Purdy. I like both these guys this week, but I am leaning towards May in that Buffalo game. I think we talked about Drake May earlier, but go ahead and let us know May versus Purdy here for you, John.
Yeah, and again, May, it's the stats without Joey Bosa, how the Bills defense is they just have no elite talent, so they can't rush the passer at all. And if you leave Drake May from a clean pocket, he's going to rip you apart. And so I think that could happen again here. So I'll take Drake May. It's super close. Like the 49ers have the second highest team total in the entire slate. The Titans also the last month. Not only the offense is bad, like their defense has just fallen apart entirely. Every team is just doing whatever the hell they want against them. So even the Browns, Shadur Sanders, going for over 300 yards last week. So Brock Purdy and the Niners are going to go nuts. They're going to put up so many points in the Titans. Having said that, I'm still going to trust the rushing floor with Drake May.
So, B-Ball Diva brings us up as well, and I think it's worth talking about here. The fact that the Niners are coming off their bye, should be at full systems go. They are a 12.5-point favorite at home against Tennessee. Is there something to be said for maybe this being a Christian McCaffrey, Brian Robinson game rather than a Brock Purdy game?
I mean, Kyle Shanahan, first of all, they have to keep winning. So there's no taking their foot off the gas in this game. Not only that, but Kyle Shanahan has already shown us that he does not care about his players' health. He's going to run you into the ground. Think back to when they were up 35-16 with 4.5 minutes left to play against the Cardinals. And Shanahan fed Christian McCaffrey 5 consecutive touches for his 3rd touchdown of the game. Didn't even be out there. Shanahan doesn't care at all. So if they can put up 50, they will put up 50, and they could put up 50.
The Falcons are driving here on Thursday Night Football. It has been 14 drives since their last touchdown, and maybe it ends right here. We'll see. Kirk Cousins hits Bijan Robinson for a 7-yard pass, then David Sills for a 10-yard pass. It's a false start on Atlanta, which moves them back. Bijan Robinson gets that yardage back on a 5-yard carry. However, defensive holding enforced on Tampa. It is now 1st and 10 in the red zone for Atlanta at the Buccaneers 19-yard line. Let's move on. I was going to bring this up at the top of the show. I felt we'd save it for now because Well, I kind of, based on what you've said, I think I know what you're going to say on this. Jordan Love or JJ McCarthy this week. I think you're fairly bullish on the Packers offense in Denver this week. JJ McCarthy does get the Cowboys pass defense in Big D. If you're faced with this decision, are you still going with Love over McCarthy here, John?
I would tell people to start McCarthy because I don't want them coming along and getting mad at me about Jordan Love. So if it were my team behind the scenes, I'm not even kidding, I would start Jordan Love, but I would literally tell everyone I'm starting Jordan Love, and I want you to start McCarthy. Do not trust me on this. I'm just going to go with my own process, and I don't think you have again, I don't think you're risk averse enough to follow me, whereas I won't care if I get it wrong. You will. So start JJ McCarthy. I will start Jordan Love and be fine with it.
Final question for you tonight. It's another quarterback one. Patrick Mahomes, speaking of quarterback one, he has not been a quarterback one in like a month. He gets the Chargers at Arrowhead this week. If you have Mahomes in your starting lineup, would you switch him out for Jackson Dart at home against the Commanders, John?
I think I would. It's just such a great matchup. I talked about earlier how even with Dan Quinn having to take over plays since week 10, the Commanders defense has just fallen apart entirely. Just go to the box score. Well, one, JJ McCarthy threw 3 touchdowns on you. That's all I need to say. When JJ McCarthy throws 3 touchdowns, that means you're the worst defense in the league. But Bo Nix had 320 yards, 16 fantasy points. Jared Goff before that, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Sam Darnold threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. They've just been giving it up to everyone. I'm concerned that not only were there 0 design runs for Jackson Dart coming back from his multi-game absence with a concussion, and so maybe they've really scaled him back, but more importantly, they didn't let him do anything. Like, they didn't even really let him throw the ball in that game. He didn't have volume whatsoever with 24 pass attempts and 0 design runs. So that's my concern. But again, I think the matchup is so good. I'm just gonna trust Jackson Dart here, who I think has the higher floor and ceiling, if all goes right, than Patrick Mahomes.
I am going to lean that way as well. I think I would play Dart over Mahomes this week if I'm faced with that decision, which thankfully I'm not. But that's the way I would roll with it. One final question. I'm sorry. B-Ball Diva 85. Rico Dowdle or Brenton Strange this week? Tight end premium. I'm going Strange here, John.
Yeah, I'm going to go Strange in tight end premium. I think I'm going to go Strange. Definitely in tight end premium. I'm trying to think in a regular PPR league.
Regular PPR, I would go Dowdle. I would go Dowdle.
Brenton Strange, all he does is come back and be a top 12 tight end. So yeah, I would start Brenton Strange for sure, though, in tight end premium.
We had another score in this Falcons. No, we don't. Beg your pardon. Falcons Buccaneers. As we look at this game tonight, Bijan Robinson incomplete pass on 3rd and 4. Zane Gonzalez hits a 31-yard field goal. However, there is a penalty on the Buccaneers for being offside. So now it will be 1st and 10 for the Falcons, and they have cashed in as Kirk Cousins hits Kyle Pitts for an 8-yard touchdown, 7-6, about to be 7-7. Ooh, I don't know if he was offside on that field goal either. Let the debate rage on here as we sign off for the night. Final question for you, John. EstablishArun.com is where you're churning out everything. At Not J Daigle on X. Those are the 2 places that we need to be checking for more John Daigle content.
Yes, at Not J Daigle, where you can ask me questions. And more importantly, yes, Establish the Run. Like I said, I think the most important thing this time of the year is to go check out those players to stash for weeks 15 through 17 to optimize your bench for whatever format you have, standard, PPR, tight end premium, to optimize your bench the best. I think that's the way to point it. And of course, the Establish the Run podcast is entirely free.
Yes, exactly. And I listen to it every week. Fantastic stuff. From you, Jack Miller, Adam Levitan. It's all been great. And it is all the time on there. Evan Silva as well. MyFFPC.com is where to go for the weekly challenge and the world famous FFPC playoff challenge as well. MyFFPC.com. I want to thank John Daigle. Our producer, Sean Engel, will be back next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern time with a big Thursday night game. Rams, Seahawks, and Rotoballers. Nico Rosler will join us for 2 full hours. For John Daigle, for Sean Engel, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the FFPC Insider Access Show here on the Better Sports Network. Talk with you again next week. Enjoy the rest of the game. Good luck in Week 15.